Chapter 173. A few years ago, when Moron Yu first met Hichu, he knew of Zhao Yun's existence. Zhao Yun was one of the most powerful powerhouses in the world, but he still fell in the end. Why was this? It was not because he was not strong enough, but because he was alone. In this world, the most miserable kind of cultivator was a rogue cultivator. They had no power, no resources, and no backing. In fact, they could only rely on themselves when fighting. For example, although Zhao Yun was powerful and one of the strongest in the world, he was a failure. However, he was too much of a failure as a person. He had no friends and no power. It was precisely because of this that he was killed by the enemy in the end. From then on, Moron Yu wanted to create his own force one day, a force that could help him. However, he did not have any resources and did not even have the ability to create his own force. Later, he joined Zushenzong. He thought that Zushenzong, this behemoth, could be his backer. But later on, he was forced to betray Zushenzong. From then on, Moron Yu's idea of creating his own force became more and more determined. When he subdued the first grade spirit vein in the extreme heaven realm, and could refine a large number of breakthrough pills, he knew that he finally had the qualifications to create his own force. And these 40-something in front of him were the foundation of his force, the foundation of chaos. He believed that as long as they were under his control, it would not be long before his force would be famous in the cultivation world. Hearing Moron Yu's words, the women immediately chose a spirit-level flying sword happily. They were all very excited. Except for Yang Man and the other two, the rest only had low-grade magic weapons in their hands. Looking at the excited women, Moron Yu secretly laughed in his heart. Although you are still people of the Xianyue sect, I don't believe that under the attack of my various treasures, you still want to go back to the Xianyue sect. After a long time, when the excitement of the women had passed, Moron Yu coughed dryly and continued. The spirit-level flying sword is just a greeting gift for you. Moreover, this is only the most basic equipment of our chaos. The most basic equipment. Hearing this, all the women were shocked. Just how many spirit tools does this Moron Yu have? Apart from the flying sword spirit tool, every member will be given at least 5,000 origin-returning pills every month. Of course, I will give every member a realm-breaking pill for free so that you can improve your strength in the shortest time possible. 5,000 recovery pills. The girls exclaimed again. In the Mystic Moon sect or other large sects, Foundation establishment cultivators were only given 5 rejuvenation pills every month. Even a Funshin stage true disciple would only receive 5,000 yuan recovery pills per month. Even body integration stage cultivators can only receive 10,000 essence recovery pills per month from a sect. These are just the most basic benefits. In the future, as your level in the primal chaos increases, your treatment will increase accordingly. Furthermore, this is only the beginning of our creation. Everything will be difficult. Even the most basic benefits were not high. However, I guarantee that when we become stronger, your treatment will also become better and better. After a pause, Moron Yu looked at the girls and asked, Here, let me ask you a question. As a cultivator, why did you become a cultivator? What do you pursue? Powerful strength, immortality, ascension to immortality. All the girls answered with a smile. Moron Yu nodded and continued to ask, Cultivators basically pursue these 3 points, but I want to ask among you, who thinks that they will have powerful strength? Ascension to immortality? Or even immortality? Silence. Everyone was silent. Whether it was powerful strength, immortality, or immortality, they did not have the confidence. After all, in the cultivation world, most people could not reach the body integration stage or the tribulation stage. Moreover, most of the people who had reached this stage were trapped in the crossing calamity stage. In the end, there were very few who could break through to the transformation stage. Even if they were lucky enough to break through to the transformation stage, would they be able to become immortals? Even if they had a lifespan of hundreds of thousands of years, Most people in the cultivation world could not transform their physical body into a complete immortal body before their lifespan was exhausted. Eventually, their lifespan was exhausted and they died. If they could not become immortals, how could they have powerful strength? How could they ascend to immortality? How could they talk about immortality? You are silent, which means that none of you have the confidence. Now let me ask you again before this. Who has the confidence to reach the body integration stage, or even the tribulation stage, or even the transformation stage? Silence, still silence. These people's aptitudes were only ordinary. How could they reach the body integration stage? Among the more than 40 people present, it was almost impossible. However, if you join us, I can guarantee that every one of you will be able to enter the transformation stage and ascend to immortality. Our goal is not only to shock the cultivation world, but also to become immortals and even gods. Moronu said excitedly, "Become immortals and gods?" Everyone's faces were full of yearning. I have an endless supply of breakthrough pills, which can help you reach the peak of the body integration stage in half a month. Not long after, I will let all of you enter the tribulation stage or even the transformation stage. Don't doubt whether I can do it or not. I will do what I say. At the same time, a pill the size of a pigeon's egg appeared in Moronyu's hand, emitting a faint golden halo. This is the tribulation crossing golden pill. Taking this pill can increase your chances of crossing the 49 heavenly tribulations by half. Everyone was shocked again. At this time, they could not help but wonder if Moronyu had obtained a treasure trove of pills. Why did he always have all kinds of pills with him? And all of them were pills that were extinct in the cultivation world. Seeing that everyone was shocked by him, Moronyu laughed in his heart. "Here, I want to ask, do you want to join the chaos?" The girls, who were stunned by his words, answered almost without hesitation, "Yes." However, young man, Sima Ryu, and Pei Peiyu were only a little hesitant, because they all remembered that Moronyu was only borrowing them temporarily. But looking at the situation now, Moronyu wanted to borrow, but not return. However, they did not say anything. Naturally, Moronyu also saw their reactions, but he didn't say anything. He believed that under his policy, it was only a matter of time before the three girls were poached. Very good, but our chaos is different from ordinary sections. We are not a sect, but a team that can fight well. Therefore, we will be divided into 4 teams. Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise. Moronyu had directly named his battle team after the 4 great legendary sacred beasts, showing off his vigorous ambition. Zhang Ao, you will be the leader of the Azure Dragon team. Young Man, you will lead the White Tiger team. Sima Ru, you will be the leader of the Vermilion Bird team. As for Pei Peiyu, you will be the leader of the Black Tortoise team. Do you have any questions? Moronyu had already thought about it, so he directly appointed at this time. No problem. Zhang Ao and even the 3 girls were very excited to be able to lead such a team as Moronyu said. Everyone felt their blood boiling. In view of the fact that the chaos has just been established, everyone's strength is on the low side. Therefore, before giving you the mission, I will first raise your strength. After dividing more than 40 people into 4 teams, Moronyu waved his hand and brought everyone to the underground cave near the 9th level spirit vein in the extreme heaven realm. Although Moronyu could not take away the spirit vein now, he could use it. Letting everyone raise their strength here could save a large amount of recovery pills. This is the 9th level spirit vein in the extreme heaven realm. Seeing the familiar underground cave, everyone exclaimed. Then, the way they looked at Moronyu changed. This is the extreme heaven realm spirit vein. I can bring you in and out of the extreme heaven realm at will. When you become stronger, the extreme heaven realm will become our back garden. Everything here will be ours. Everyone's eyes lit up. There were countless treasures in the extreme heaven realm, and they could go in and out at will. Thinking of this, everyone could not wait to rush out. However, they suppressed the impulse in their hearts in the end. They were now people of the chaos, and the most basic organization and discipline were still there. Murong led everyone directly into the underground river formed by the ninth-level spirit vein. At the same time, he took out a large number of breakthrough pills and handed them to the girls. In the following time, you can break through your realm here until you reach the peak of the form synthesis stage. Everyone cheered, and after receiving the breakthrough pills, they began to cultivate. With the help of the ninth-level spirit veins, rich spiritual energy, and the help of the breakthrough pills, the girls' cultivation was rapidly increasing. In just half a month, everyone's strength, including Young Man and the other two, finally reached the peak of the form synthesis stage. After spending a few more days to consolidate their cultivation, Murong brought them back to the Hichu Luoshu world's tribulation thunder and let the girls temper their bodies here. After using a full month's time to raise the girls' realm and body to a certain level, Murong ended their cultivation and brought them to the other side of the Hichu Luoshu world. Here, there were already many buildings rising from the ground. They were all built by the people that Murong had captured in the Upper Azure Town. Those people had long been used to living here because Murong did not treat them as prisoners. Every month, they would be provided with enough recovery pills and other things. It was much better than being a shop assistant or an ordinary disciple outside. Therefore, when Murong left the extreme heaven realm and wanted to let these people go, they did not want to leave here. They had already fallen in love with this world where there was no struggle. These disciples who were captured were used to the peaceful and non-fighting life here. Seeing that they were unwilling to leave, Murong did not force them to leave. Instead, he reorganized them and began to transform the Hichu Luoshu world. After all, now the chaos had begun to develop. Although as cultivators, they did not necessarily need their own rooms like mortals to rest. However, they cannot all live in the open, right? Therefore, during this process, Murong let these people start to build more houses on the original foundation. Time acceleration. Chapter 174. After entering Hichu Luoshu, Murong directly accelerated time, and he didn't need to burn the energy recovering pill, because he directly entered the vicinity of the ninth-level spiritual vein of the ultimate heaven realm and burned the endless spiritual chi of the ninth-level spiritual vein to accelerate time. In the case of time acceleration, it took Murong a full year to formulate a series of rules and regulations for chaos with everyone. Under Hichu's training, the first batch of members of Chaos not only reached the combination realm, but their combat power also increased day by day, and they were many times stronger than before. From now on, you start to walk in the cultivation world and start to look for qualified vagrant girls. This was everyone's first task. Recruit. Chaos was different from ordinary sections. As long as ordinary sects released the news of recruitment, people would automatically come to join them. However, Murong didn't want to do this, and he wanted the members of Chaos to look for them personally. And they had to be vagrant children. It didn't matter if they had no foundation in cultivation, because Murong had a lot of cultivation methods, pills, and time acceleration. What he didn't lack now was time. Even if it was just a newborn child, it wouldn't take long for him to cultivate it into a cultivator at the combination realm. Moreover, only homeless people like them would not attract attention, even if they suddenly disappeared. At the same time, Murong equipped this batch of members of Chaos with countless jade slips with ceiling formations, and instructed them to leave such jade slips wherever they went. In this way, not only could Murong sense their presence at any time, but as the group went to more places, he could teleport to more places, greatly reducing the time spent on the road. Except for Zhang Ao, everyone had left Hichu Luoshu and gone on their own. After doing all this, Murong was a little bored and didn't know what to do for a while. 5 years or 6 years. It's time to go home. Murong's eyes suddenly blurred. For Murong's family, there was nothing Murong was nostalgic about. However, in that place called an East City, he had a brother, an uncle who treated him like his own son. They were Li Feng and his son. If Murong still cared about the secular world, it was only these two. As for Murong's family, although later because he could cultivate, the family treated him very well. but it couldn't erase the bullying he had suffered for more than 10 years. The Great Xia Dynasty, one of the top 10 empires in the world. Anyi City was the capital and the largest city of the Great Xia Dynasty. People came and went, and it was extremely lively. Murongyu carried the black spear on his back and entered Anyi City. Murongyu couldn't help but sigh as he looked at the bustling city that was almost completely different from a few years ago. Following his memories, Murongyu arrived in front of the Blessing Gathering building. Was Li's family's family? Normally, the father and son would be at the Blessing Gathering mansion, managing their business. They rarely spent time at home. Therefore, Murongyu walked directly to the was. However, Murongyu stopped when he was just a short distance away from the Blessing Gathering building. Am I in the right place? Is this really the was? Looking at the luxuriously decorated huge restaurant in front of him, Murongyu was immediately shocked. 5 years ago, the was had a good business in Anyi City and had a good reputation. But it was just a mid-level restaurant. Whether it was decoration or quality, it was far inferior to the one Murongyu saw now. Now, the Blessing Gathering loft in front of Murongyu was not only 10 times more luxurious than before. No matter how one looked at it, it now looked like the best restaurant in Anyi City. The business was countless times better than before. If this was really the was, Murongyu would be very happy. Because of this scale, it meant that Li Feng and his father not only had an extremely shrewd business mind, but also developed to this extent in just 5 years. In fact, what Murongyu didn't know was that it was not only the was. In just 5 years, Li Feng's family had opened branches in more than 100 cities in the Great Xia Dynasty. Now, Li Feng's family business was big. Although it was not as big as those families with countless years of history, it was definitely a big family. "Sir, please come in." As soon as Murongyu walked into the was, a waiter came out to greet him enthusiastically. Murongyu nodded. He looked around the Blessing Gathering building as he walked inside. "Is your young shopkeeper, Li Feng, here?" Murongyu suddenly asked. "You're looking for the young master?" Hearing this, the waiter looked at Murongyu with a strange look on his face. As a spirit tranquil stage practitioner, how could he not see the strange look on the waiter's face? Did something happen? Murongyu's face suddenly became gloomy as he looked at the waiter. "Our young master is very busy now and has no time to see you. If you're just here to spend money, we welcome you. But if you're here to see our young master, I'm sorry I don't have time to entertain you." The waiter's face suddenly became cold. Murongyu was stunned and then sneered in his heart. The business of this was much better than before. Even the waiter is so arrogant now. If it was before, none of the waiter in there was this attitude. However, Murongyu was too lazy to argue with the waiter. If he argued with him, Murongyu would be too stingy. Immediately, he snorted and turned around to walk toward the room where Li Feng was in his memory. Although the Blessing Gathering building was many times more luxurious than before, the layout was still the same as before. Seeing Murongyu walk towards the back of the Blessing Gathering building, how could they tolerate this? That was the place where Li Feng and the other workers went in and out. Customers were forbidden from entering. With a sneer, the waiter immediately rushed up and blocked Murongyu's path. "What are you doing? If you dare to trespass again, I'll report you to the authorities." The waiter coldly looked at Murongyu with a trace of disdain in his eyes. Good. The waiter nowadays is really getting more and more arrogant. Thinking back, didn't I walk around the was this, not the was this, not the was this, not the case? Now, even if I take a step, I'll be stopped. Murongyu slightly narrowed his eyes and was clearly angry. He coldly shouted, "Get out of my way. Get out immediately." The waiter was very unyielding and coldly looked at Murongyu. Murongyu was extremely displeased. With a wave of his hand, he pushed the shop assistant to the side. If the waiter wasn't an ordinary person, Murongyu would have already sent him flying with a slap. "Help! Someone is robbing us." After being pushed to the side by Murongyu, the waiter spun around a few times and suddenly felt dizzy. At this moment, he saw Murongyu striding toward the back of the was this too late to stop him. He opened his mouth and shouted, "Swish! Swish! Swish!" Just as the waiter shouted, a few figures quickly appeared nearby and blocked Murong-Yu's path. Khanate realm cultivators? Murong-Yu was stunned because the people blocking him were actually 3 Khanate realm cultivators. Li Feng actually had the ability to hire Khanate realm cultivators to guard the was this? One must know that Khanate realm cultivators were like ants to Murong-Yu now. However, this was the secular world, a world where there weren't many Khanate realm cultivators. In this world, Khanate realm cultivators were absolute experts. Although the 3 Khanate realm cultivators in front of him weren't very high, they were still considered experts in the secular world. At this moment, the 3 experts were glaring at Murong-Yu with murderous looks on their faces. Their expressions were grave as they slowly surrounded Murong-Yu. These 3 Khanate realm cultivators were different from the waiter from before. That waiter was only an ordinary person and couldn't see through Murong-Yu's cultivation. Although the 3 of them couldn't see through Murong-Yu's cultivation, they knew that Murong-Yu's strength was definitely much stronger than theirs. They even felt an incomparably terrifying aura from Murong-Yu's body. It was an aura that made their souls tremble. Despite the fear in their hearts, as professional bodyguards, they suppressed the fear in their hearts and slowly surrounded Murong-Yu. The waiter was like this, and so were the bodyguards. Suddenly, Murong-Yu felt discouraged for no reason, or perhaps it was disappointment. After glancing at the 3 people indifferently, Murong-Yu turned around and was about to walk out. "Young Master Yu." At this moment, an old man walked over from the front and cried out in alarm when he saw Murong-Yu. Young Master Yu was the name that some people in the auspicious gathering mansion called Murong-Yu. Hearing this, Murong-Yu immediately stopped and looked at the old man in front of him. "Young Master Yu, you're back. That's great. The eldest young master and the others can be saved." The white-haired old man ran over excitedly, and his words shocked Murong-Yu. "Uncle Chun, what did you say? Are little Feng and the others in danger?" Murong-Yu turned pale with fright and rushed forward, grabbing Uncle Chin's hands and asking anxiously, "Young Master Yu, it's great that you're back. You must save the eldest young master and the others. If you're late, they'll both be finished." Uncle Chun said anxiously, but didn't say the reason. This made Murong-Yu even more anxious. Chapter 175. Uncle Chun, an old servant of the Leaf family in the Blessing Mansion, was loyal to the Leaf family. He had also heard that Murong-Yu had gone to the cultivation world. Because of the recent crisis the Leaf family had encountered, the Blessing Mansion in an E-city had been temporarily handed over to Uncle Chun. Naturally, the conflict that had happened here could not be hidden from Uncle Chun. It was because he was worried about this that Uncle Chun had come over. But he did not expect to meet an acquaintance here, a man who had gone to the cultivation world. Murong-Yu. The cultivation world was not a mystery in the secular world. There was no cultivator who did not know about it. Even the most common cultivator was many times more powerful than a cultivator in the innate realm. It was precisely because of Murong-Yu's appearance that Uncle Chin's heart, which had almost given up all hope, once again became lively. "Master and the others." Uncle Chin's face darkened, but it made Murong-Yu more anxious. "Sorry, I have to go first." Seeing that Uncle Chun did not say a word for a long time, the anxious Murong-Yu immediately lost his patience. He immediately said goodbye to Uncle Chun and quickly flew in the direction of the Leaf family in his memory. Li Feng was Murong-Yu's only friend and brother in the secular world. They were even closer than brothers. Now that he heard that the Leaf family was in trouble, how could Murong-Yu remain calm? He rushed out of the Blessing Mansion like a gust of wind and quickly rushed to the Leaf family. However, although Murong-Yu was very anxious, he did not want to be too shocking, so he did not fly directly. But with the troop formula under his feet, his speed was unparalleled in the world. Swish! The people on the street only felt a gentle breeze. They didn't even catch a glimpse of Murong-Yu's figure before he disappeared without a trace. Seeing Murong-Yu's figure disappear in an instant, Uncle Chin's turbid eyes shone with a trace of light. The more powerful Murong-Yu was, the more hope the Leaf family had. On the old site of the Leaf family, an extremely luxurious mansion rose from the ground. It was no less luxurious than the top rich people in an East city. This was the Leaf family. At this time, the Leaf family was in a state of panic. Countless Sciention realm experts were lying in ambush around the Leaf family. There were sentries every 3 steps and sentries every 5 steps, protecting the Leaf family's mansion so densely that it was like an iron bucket. A tense and solemn atmosphere spread far and wide. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that something unusual was about to happen to the Leaf family. In fact, this was indeed the case. Even though the mansion was heavily guarded, it couldn't conceal the nervousness and determination in everyone's hearts, especially Li Feng and his son. At this moment, in the Li family's main hall, Li Gua, Li Feng, a gorgeous woman, and a chubby little boy who was about 3 or 4 years old playing in the hall. The 3 adults looked nervous, and the atmosphere was heavy. That little fatty, on the other hand, was completely oblivious to the impending danger. He was still having fun in the hall. Xiao Feng, you 3 pack up and leave an East City and the Great Xia dynasty. Go as far as you can and never come back. Li was sat on the main seat. His face was gloomy, but his tone revealed a kind of despair and unwillingness. No, we're a family. If we're leaving, we'll leave together. But can we really leave? Even the Morong family doesn't dare to provoke them. Even if we escape from the Great Xia dynasty, I'm afraid we'll be uprooted. Li Feng's eyes were filled with tears. He was desperate and unwilling. Is our Li family's bloodline going to end like this? Looking at his daughter-in-law, who was crying, and the little fatty, who was playing happily, Li Gua's eyes were red. The little fatty was Li Feng's son and also his grandson. This carefree little fatty might not be able to escape the nightmare in the end. The Li family would also be destroyed in a few days. Thinking of that existence, Li Gua couldn't help but sigh. He was unwilling and helpless. But so what? Although they were astonishingly wealthy and powerful now, in front of them, he was even less than an ant. Moreover, everything was caused by the disaster caused by his family's great business. Sighing, Li Gua's eyes were filled with a blurred expression. In a trance, he recalled his life many years ago. The auspicious Gathering Loft was a very small restaurant, and its business wasn't very good. However, they were also happy because at that time, their small businesses were basically not suppressed by anyone. Although there was competition, at least it wouldn't harm their lives. However, as the blessing Gathering Loft grew bigger and bigger, it was suppressed by another restaurant, customers like the clouds. Many years ago, however, the Yun family was only a small family. In the end, Morong Yu used Morong Yu to uproot that family. In the next few years, Li Feng displayed an astonishing talent in business. In just 5 years, the auspicious Gathering Loft had opened more than 100 branches in the entire Great Xia dynasty. However, at this time, the nightmare came. As the business grew, so did the competition. As a result, the auspicious Gathering Loft hindered or stole many benefits from many large families. Of course, these large families wouldn't just watch as the auspicious Gathering Loft grew. Thus, all kinds of competition, both overt and covert, came. However, other than his business acumen, Li Feng was also good in other aspects. While developing the branches of the auspicious Gathering Loft, he also expanded his own strength. Thus, after 5 years, although he still couldn't compare to those large families with many years of history, his strength wasn't weak. However, they were not weak either. They had countless Sciention realm experts. Although he couldn't compete with those large families, he had no problem protecting himself. Moreover, although he had disputes with those large families, it hadn't reached the point of life and death. However, something had happened not long ago, which foreshadowed the arrival of the Li family's disaster. It was just one person, a person who had intimidated many large families. Sciention experts were like ants in front of them. Looking at the luxurious mansion in front of him, Morong Yu's heart finally relaxed. Although it seemed to be heavily guarded, the atmosphere was solemn and tense. But nothing bad should have happened. Stopping, Morong Yu slowly walked in front of the Li family and was about to enter. "Who's there?" Stop right there. Just as Murongyu was about to enter the Li family, an angry shout sounded. Then, a strong man full of murderous aura appeared from the side and blocked Murongyu's path. Xiantian Stage 3. In the secular world, this level was already considered an expert. However, in front of Murongyu, he was nothing. Of course, after being blocked, Murongyu didn't flip out. After all, this man was protecting the Li family. I'm Li Feng's friend. Please go and inform him. Murongyu didn't force his way in and only said with a faint smile. The strong man sized up Murongyu with a suspicious look. He was becoming more and more terrifying. The strength of this person in front of him was unfathomable. Moreover, a dangerous aura that made one's soul tremble faintly emitted from his body. It was extremely frightening and terrifying. He had seen experts of Xiantian Stage 7 or 8 a few times, but he had never felt such a terrifying aura from anyone. Could it be that he's from a cultivation world? The strong man guessed suspiciously, but he guessed right. Thinking that the other party might be from the cultivation world, the strong man felt somewhat nervous. Facing this kind of existence that could easily kill him, he obviously didn't dare to provoke. Please wait a moment. Let me go and report. Although the strong man didn't dare to provoke Murongyu, he also didn't directly let Murongyu in. What if Murongyu was one of those enemies? He heard that those people were also from the cultivation world. The strong man's heart trembled, and he quickly turned around and ran towards the depths of the Li family. Murongyu also didn't force his way in. He just stood at the door and looked at this luxurious mansion in boredom. What? You said that there's a person who seems to be from the cultivation world outside, and he claims to be my friend? After hearing the strong man's report, Li Feng and the others suddenly looked at each other, and their faces became gloomier. You leave first. Tell him that I'll go out immediately. Li Feng dismissed the strong man and then looked at Li Guo. Little Feng, the three of you leave through the back door immediately. I'll go out and have a look. Li Guo suddenly stood up and said with a determined face. Li Feng shook his head. If he's really one of those people, do you think we can escape? Since we can't hide, why not face it calmly? As he spoke, he couldn't help but look at his own aura and the little fatty. His eyes were full of guilt and gentleness. Hanning walked up and held Li Feng's hand. Although her face was pale, there was a determined look on her face. Marrying you, I have no regrets in this life. Li Feng's body trembled, and he gently stroked Han Ying's beautiful face. Then he picked up the little fatty and kissed his chubby little face. Then he handed him to Han Ying. No matter what, our family must stay together. Before he could finish his sentence, Li Feng had already turned around and left the hall. He quickly walked outside. Han Ying carried the little fatty and followed Li Guo out of the room. Since they couldn't escape, why not face it calmly? Li Feng's heart was extremely heavy. Every step he took was as heavy as Mount Tai. It was so heavy that invisible pressure almost caused him to collapse. After walking for a long time, Li Feng finally appeared in front of the Li family's gate. Little Feng. At this moment, an extremely familiar voice came from afar. Li Feng's body trembled, and his eyes flashed as he looked at the gate. Little you, Li Feng first exclaimed, and then his face changed drastically. He quickly ran up and said, Little you have to leave here quickly. Hurry, or it'll be too late. When he saw Murongyu, Li Feng's first reaction was to never involve his family's affairs with Murongyu. Murongyu was his brother, and he couldn't let Murongyu get hurt. Murongyu frowned, and his face immediately darkened. Little Feng, you're my brother. Brother for life, what do you mean by that? Li Feng smiled bitterly. It was precisely because they were brothers that he didn't want Murongyu to get involved. Although Murongyu was a cultivator, he was still a cultivator. How strong could a cultivator be after 5 years? The other party was a sect. Even if Murongyu was strong, he was definitely not their opponent. Anyway, he was powerless to resist. If he died, then so be it. But he couldn't drag his brother into this. This was Li Feng's thought. Let's talk inside. Murongyu and Li Feng had known each other for many years. How could he not know what he was thinking? Although he didn't know what kind of enemy Li Feng had encountered, he was determined to interfere in this matter even if it was one of the top 10 sects in the cultivation world. Even if it was one of the top 10 sects, he had the ability to do so. Sigh. Li Feng sighed and could only bring Murong Yu in. However, in his heart, he was pondering how to persuade Murong Yu to leave. However, what he didn't know was that Murong Yu was already brimming with killing intent. Who dares to touch my brother? I'll destroy his whole sect. However, Murong Yu managed to conceal the murderous intent in his heart very well. No matter who the other party was, Murong Yu was going to start a massacre this time. Chapter 176. He needed to understand the ins and outs of this matter. Otherwise, he would not know how to protect his brother. Uncle Li, long time no see. On the way back, Murong Yu met Li Gua. When he greeted Li Gua, he also saw Han Ing, who was holding the little fatty. This must be sister-in-law, right? Aya, Xiao Yu. Why did you come back at such time? Seeing Murong Yu, Li Gua was stunned at first, then sighed. Obviously, he had the same idea as Li Feng. He did not want to implicate Murong Yu. You must be Uncle Murong Yu. Han Ing greets Uncle. Although Han Ing was in a bad mood and her face was very pale, she still maintained her politeness. Uncle, give me a hug. When he saw Murong Yu, the little fatty immediately beamed and opened his arms to Murong Yu for a hug. Looking at the little fatty who resembled Li Feng, Murong Yu beamed with joy as he picked him up in his arms. Then, he searched his body, but soon he smiled embarrassedly. He really did not have a suitable gift for the little fatty. Although he had some treasures on him, the little fatty was only 3 years old. Those things would not be of use to him. Tell Uncle, what's your name? Murong Yu asked with a smile as he hugged the little fatty. The little fatty was not afraid of strangers and said crisply, My name is Li Ling, Uncle. Are you that immortal Murong Yu? Uncle? My dad and Grandpa always talk about you. Yes, I am your Uncle Murong. Tell Uncle, did your dad and Grandpa say anything bad about me? No, my dad and Grandpa are all good people. They would not say anything bad about you. The little fatty rolled his eyes and said, Ha ha ha. Seeing this, Murong Yu laughed loudly. He felt that this little fatty was quite interesting. Even Li Feng and the other two who had been feeling down were amused by the little fatty. In the hall, Murong Yu and the others sat down. At this moment, the little fatty had already been carried away by his mother and left the main hall. On the other hand, Murong Yu's face darkened. Uncle Li, Xiao Feng, what's going on? Xiao Yu, you should go back. There's no need to get involved in this. We're not their match. Li Gua sighed. His tone was filled with despair. Exactly which clan wants to annihilate all of you? Murong Yu's expression was extremely gloomy, and his killing intent surged as it suffused the air. If there really was a clan, or even the great Xia dynasty that wanted to exterminate the Li family, he wouldn't mind wiping them off the face of the earth. He had the ability to do so. Did the Murong clan ask about this? Murong's family was definitely one of the top families in the great Xia dynasty. If Murong's family didn't ask about this, a cold killing intent flashed in Murong Yu's eyes. Murong's family? Although the Murong's family is a super family, they're still not their match. They're cultivators, a cultivation sect, Li Feng said in a self-deprecating tone. A cultivation sect wants to make a move on you. Murong Yu was shocked. Then, his killing intent was revealed. In the cultivation world, cultivators were generally not allowed to interfere with the affairs of the secular world. Even the top 10 sects only indirectly controlled an empire and wouldn't directly interfere. But now, a cultivation sect wanted to make a move on the Li family? How could this be? Heaven's Spirit Sect. Li Feng gritted his teeth and said this. Heaven's Spirit Sect? What's that? Murong Yu sneered. In his memory, he had never heard of this sect. Moreover, the great Xia dynasty was within the sphere of influence of the Heaven's Expanse sect. Now that something like this had happened, he felt that it was time for him to go to the Heaven's Expanse sect and demand an explanation. However, before that, he had to settle this matter with the Li family. At this moment, Murong Yu's killing intent surged. A mere nameless brand not only openly oppressed the people of the secular world, but also bullied his brother. How could this be? Uncle Lee, little phone, what's going on? Why would a cultivation sect want to exterminate you? Although Murong Yu's killing intent was boundless, he was more curious about why this sect wanted to make a move on the Lee family. Logically speaking, a secular family like the Lee family shouldn't have any relationship with them. Little you shouldn't interfere in this matter. I don't want to implicate you. You should leave now and wait for your cultivation to reach a certain level before coming back to avenge us. Lee sighed and said, Little you, I beg you for one thing. Leave immediately and take my son with you. I don't want to leave my family and have no descendants. Li Feng raised his head and said with red eyes. Li Feng and Li Feng's actions caused Murong Yu's killing intent to become even stronger. Looking at the two of them, that heaven spirit sect had already forced them into a dead end. Right now, they were already in despair. Sighing, Murong Yu solemnly looked at Li Gua and Li Feng and said, Uncle Li, do you believe me? Li Feng and Li Feng nodded. Little Feng is my brother. Uncle Li, you also treat me as your own. I, Murong Yu, have never forgotten this kindness. Today, you are in trouble. Even if I, Murong Yu, have to sacrifice my life, I will protect you from any harm. Furthermore, I am no longer the trash from before. Today, I can solemnly tell you that I have the ability to protect you. If that heaven spirit sect really wants to die, I can even directly wipe them off the face of this world. While speaking, Murong Yu's entire body surged with killing intent. Looking at the murderous Murong Yu, Li Gua sighed. Just as he was about to say something, he was interrupted by Murong Yu. I will definitely take care of this matter. Helplessly, Li Feng could only tell him the whole story. Li Feng's business acumen was absolutely top-notch. In a short 5 years, he had opened branches of the auspicious Gathering Mansion all over the Grand Xia dynasty. Furthermore, their financial resources were comparable to those large clans with many years of history. Of course, the resources of the clans could not compare. It was precisely because of this that the Heaven Spirits sect had directly approached the Li clan and threatened to take over the auspicious Gathering Mansion. The auspicious Gathering Mansion was the painstaking effort of Li Feng and his son. They had spent countless efforts to build it to such a scale. How could they be willing to let it be taken over by others? When they had refused, the Heaven Spirits sect disciple had become furious and killed more than 10 Xiantian experts on the spot. Furthermore, he had given Li Feng and his son half a month to take over the auspicious Gathering Mansion. If they still refused, then the Li clan would be completely annihilated. Murong Yu was incomparably shocked by Li Feng's business acumen. As for the Heaven Spirit sect's actions, he was surging with killing intent. As a cultivation sect, why would the Heaven Spirit sect want secular businesses? Generally speaking, secular things were of no use to cultivators. After all, those gold, silver, and jewelry were indispensable things in the secular world. However, they were useless to cultivators. However, what Murong Yu did not know was that even the Heaven's Expanse sect controlled an empire like the Grand Xia dynasty. Could it be that the Heaven's Expanse sect needed the secular world's gold, silver, and jewelry? Obviously not. They had what they needed. What did an empire have the most? The common people. Most of the disciples of the cultivation sects were recruited from all over the world. Not only did the cultivation assembly exist, but the various sects also had various ways to recruit disciples. The cultivation assembly only targeted the large clans. The Li clan had rapidly risen in the past few years and opened branches all over the Grand Xia dynasty. If the Heaven Spirit sect controlled these clans, then they could use them to recruit a large number of disciples. Moreover, the Li clan's gold, silver, and jewelry could also help them realize their ambitions in the secular world. Murong Yu did not ask Li Feng why they did not directly hand over the auspicious Gathering Mansion or abandon it. If it were him, the business that he had painstakingly built for many years would suddenly be snatched away by an existence that he would never be able to resist. If he were to encounter such a situation, Murong Yu would rather risk it all. This Heaven Spirit sect is really courting death. Murderous intent rose in Murong Yu's heart. He even had the impulse to kill and annihilate them. How long until they come? Murong asked in a deep voice. 3 days later, Li Feng said with a sigh. 3 days later? Murong sneered in his heart. He then said to Li Feng and Li Guo with a smile, "You don't have to be so gloomy. With me here, the Heaven Spirit sect won't be able to harm you. They can also forget about seizing the auspicious gathering mansion. They are a sect. Xiaoyu, you're just one person. Don't tell me you plan to ask for help from your sect." Li Guo looked at Murong with shining eyes. Sect? Murong smiled bitterly. He was all alone now. However, he had the 8 talent token, which allowed him to ask the 8 talent Chamber of Commerce to do 3 things for him for free. However, he did not need to trouble the 8 talent Chamber of Commerce to deal with trash like the Heaven Spirit sect. He could handle it alone. Don't worry. With me here, the Heaven Spirit sect won't be able to do anything to you, Murong promised as he patted his chest. Chapter 177. Murong had absolute confidence in dealing with the Heaven Spirit sect and protecting the Li family. However, Li Feng and the others had never seen Murong's strength. Moreover, Murong was alone, while the Heaven Spirit sect was a sect. How could one person fight against a sect? It was precisely because of this idea that the Li family members became more and more uneasy. However, they also knew Murong's temper. Since Murong had decided to stay, no matter how they persuaded him, he would not change his mind. Now, they only hoped that when the people of the Heaven Spirit sect arrived, Murong would realize how powerful they were and leave. They simply did not want to implicate Murong. However, they did not know that Murong's strength had long exceeded their understanding. No matter how Murong explained, Li Feng and the others were still so frightened and uneasy. In the end, Murong was too lazy to explain. Anyway, 3 days was not a long time. It would pass in the blink of an eye. At that time, as long as Murong killed the people of the Heaven Spirit sect, Li Feng and the others would naturally not continue to be frightened. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. On this day, all the members of the Li family gathered in the hall. The Xiantian experts they had hired were all standing guard outside. They were all nervous and sweating on their foreheads. Now, they were dealing with people from the cultivation world. Even the weakest cultivator could easily kill them. Under such circumstances, how could they not be nervous? However, as professional bodyguards, they did not run away. Even in the face of death, they faithfully carried out their mission. From this, it could be seen that the quality of the Xiantian experts hired by the Li family was not bad. Looking at the nervous people inside, Murong could not help but find it funny. However, at the same time, killing intent flashed in the depths of his eyes. Damn the people of the Heaven Spirit sect. If it were not for them, how could the Li family be like this? Not only did they deal with the people of the secular world, but they also dared to touch his brothers. They were really courting death. The atmosphere in the Li clan became even more tense and austere. The only ones who were not nervous were Murong and Zhang Ao. Zhang Ao was originally brought along by Murong in case of an emergency. Now it was indeed useful. Although he disdained the Heavenly Spirit sect, it was better to be safe than sorry. Murong could only be at ease if someone was protecting the Li family. Of course, Murong could also take Li Feng and the others into the Hichu Luoshu world. That way, they would be absolutely safe. However, Murong didn't do so. Inside the Hichu Luoshu, they couldn't see his strength, and they couldn't see the Heaven Spirit sect being destroyed by him. Li Feng and the others could only truly relax after witnessing him wiping out the Heavenly Spirit sect with their own eyes. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to live in peace for the rest of their lives. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Several streaks of sword light flew toward an E-city from afar. Soon, they entered the city and shot toward the Li family. They actually appeared in front of the people of the secular world. They are really courting death. Murong sneered in his heart. The people of the secular world were familiar with the cultivation world and even yearned for it. But if it was not necessary, The cultivators would not show their identity in front of the people of the secular world. Flying at a low altitude in the secular world was not allowed in the cultivation world. With a flash, Morong Yu floated down from the roof of the hall and returned to the hall. Uncle Morong, you are so awesome. You can even fly. Can you teach me? I want to fly too. As soon as Morong Yu entered the hall, he saw the little fat boy walking toward him with stars in his eyes and an envious look on his face. Morong Yu picked up the little fat boy with a smile on his face. Do you want to learn? How about I teach you? The little fat boy was overjoyed and kept nodding. His chubby little hands clutched Morong Yu's clothes tightly, as if he were afraid that Morong Yu would suddenly leave. But I have to deal with one thing first. I'll teach you after that. Okay? Okay. The little fat boy nodded sensibly and returned to his mother's arms. Hearing the conversation between Morong Yu and his nephew, the eyes of the three adults of the Li clan lit up. Little Yu, Li Feng called out to Morong Yu. Just as he was about to say something, whoosh, 3 sword lights flashed, and then 3 figures appeared in the open space in front of the hall. They were 3 cultivators with long swords on their backs. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Although the 3 of them did not reveal any powerful aura, the invisible aura oppressed the surrounding Xiantian masters and frightened them. However, as loyal bodyguards, they knew their mission. Although he knew that these 3 people were the legendary cultivators who could easily kill him, he still couldn't believe it. However, they still managed to surround the 3 of them quickly. Seeing these 3 people, Li Feng's family suddenly revealed a look of despair. This was because they recognized one of them. It was the one who had looked for them that day. Morong Yu glanced at the 3 people indifferently, and then revealed a trace of disdain on his face. 2 foundation establishment stage and 1 early revolving reflection stage. Although he already knew that the Heavenly Spirit sect did not have any experts, Morong Yu was still very disdainful of foundation establishment and revolving reflection stage cultivators. Humph! Seeing the surrounding people surround them, the revolving reflection stage cultivator could not help but coldly snort. Then, an aura burst out from his body like a stormy sea. Pung, pung, pung. The pitiful Xiantian realm cultivators in the surroundings didn't even have time to react before they were blown away and fell into the distance. Seeing the other party send the Xiantian master they had hired flying with a cold snort, the pupils of Li Feng and the others suddenly shrank, and their hearts became even more desperate. Only Morong Yu's expression did not change. As for Zhang Ao, at this time, he was not in the Li family. So powerful! Uncle, are you that powerful? The 3-year-old little fatty did not know that danger was approaching and only looked at the 3 people in front of him with shining eyes. Children were children. When they saw something they thought was powerful, they would shout loudly and not distinguish the situation. Hearing the little fatty's words, Li Feng and the others were scared half to death. Haunting even covered the little fatty's mouth. She was afraid that the 3 cultivators would kill them if they were angered. Morong Yu smiled slightly. The 3 of them are just trash. Uncle is much more powerful than them. In the future, you will also be many times more powerful than them. If Morong Yu really taught the little fatty how to cultivate, even if the little fatty's talent was ordinary, his future achievements would not be bad. The 3 in front of him were just beginner cultivators. Who are you? As if only now noticing Morong Yu's existence, the revolving reflection stage cultivator looked at Morong Yu. With just one look, the 3 of their pupils suddenly shrank, because they could not see the depth of Morong Yu's cultivation. He is also an ordinary person. The 3 wanted to tell themselves that Morong Yu is also an ordinary person. But with one look at Morong Yu's aura and posture, they knew that he was definitely not an ordinary person. An expert. The 3 were shocked and immediately looked at Li Feng and the others with fierce eyes. You 3 found a cultivator? Very good. You dare to oppose our Heavenly Spirit sect. You are courting death. Although the 3 were talking to Li Feng and the others, it was clear that they were warning Morong Yu. They were not just the 3 of them, but the entire Heavenly Spirit sect. Although Morong Yu was strong and they could not see through him, How could he compare to a sect like the Heavenly Spirit sect? Moreover, Muronyu was not necessarily strong. The reason why they could not see through him was because their strength was too low. That's right, you are courting death. Muronyu indifferently glanced at them and sneered. Then he stretched out his hand and slowly slapped the faces of the 3 Heavenly Spirit sect disciples in the air. At this time, something happened that frightened the 3 of them. Muronyu's big hand was very slow and only moved slowly. They wanted to attack and dodge, but to their horror, they found that they couldn't move. In the end, they could only watch as Muronyu's big hand kept getting bigger and bigger. Pa, pa, pa. After 3 crisp sounds, Muronyu's big hand slapped their faces almost at the same time. Suddenly, a scene that shocked Li Feng and the others appeared. In their eyes, the 3 self-cultivators did not dodge. It was as if they were standing there and waiting for Muronyu to slap them. After the slap, half of their faces swelled up like steamed buns. Moreover, the 3 of them opened their mouths and spat out a large mouthful of blood. There was a bit of white in the scarlet red. Obviously, their big front teeth were also slapped out by Muronyu. This was because Muronyu did not contain any power. Otherwise, with Muronyu's body of a 7th grade spiritual weapon, these 3 rookies would have been smashed into meat paste immediately. Like broken cotton, the 3 of them were immediately sent flying in the same direction. Just now, they had smashed a group of Xiantian masters, but now they were sent flying by Muronyu's slap. 30 years in the east, 30 years in the west. Retribution came really quickly. With a cold snort, Muronyu stretched out his big hand. The big hand enlarged in the air and covered the 3 of them in an instant. While they were in the air, he caught them and threw them on the open ground in front of the hall. Uncle Murong is so powerful. The little fatty broke free from his mother's hand and applauded with all his strength. Li Feng and the other Xiantian masters were shocked. They all looked at Murongyu as if they were looking at a monster. Especially those Xiantian masters. They knew how powerful the 3 self-cultivators from the Heaven Spirit sect were. But Murongyu was even more powerful than them. Murongyu's attack had a great impact on them. Chapter 178. For a moment, everyone was stunned and looked at Murongyu in shock. The 3 good-for-nothings of the Heaven Spirit sect were looking at Murongyu with hatred. Their mouths were squirming, but they couldn't make a sound. Murongyu's slap had broken their jaws, so they couldn't even speak. Murongyu didn't care about the shocked, resentful, or monstrous looks of the crowd. He had long been used to this kind of look. However, at this time, he was looking at the little fatty who was clapping his little hands with a strange look. This little guy didn't know what danger was. He just looked very excited. Zhang Ao. Murongyu shouted as he dealt with the 3 fellows with a single slap. Whoosh! A figure flew in from outside the Li family. It was Zhang Ao. You stay here and protect them. Before I come back, kill anyone who gets close to the Li family. Murongyu said in a deep voice. Yes, leader. Zhang Ao took the order. Murongyu gave a jade slip to Zhang Ao and told him to crush it immediately when he was in danger, so that he could come back as soon as possible. Then he waved his hand and grabbed the 3 good-for-nothings of the Heaven Spirit sect. His figure flashed, and he immediately flew into the distance. If it were any other time, Murongyu's slap would have killed those 3 pieces of trash. But now, for the sake of the Li family, he had to completely destroy the Heaven Spirit sect. Using the troop formula, Murongyu turned into a stream of light and instantly appeared outside an East City as if he had teleported. Looking at the rapidly disappearing scenery around them, the resentment in the eyes of the 3 good-for-nothings of the Heaven Spirit sect had disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by shock. This speed was more than 100 times faster than their flying swords. As for Murongyu's strength, they were even more horrified. Throwing the 3 good-for-nothings on the ground, Murongyu looked around and suddenly showed an inexplicable expression. I didn't expect to come here by accident. The Pillar of Heaven's Mountains was the place that changed Murongyu's life. Here, Murongyu met Hichu Luoshu, and from then on, A trash who couldn't cultivate became an existence with heaven-defying aptitude. In fact, the only reason Murong Yu couldn't cultivate was because he was a chaotic, celestial body. After meeting Hichu, he thought that it was because of the primal chaos, celestial record that he was able to cultivate it. Looking at the mountains, Murong Yu's thoughts seemed to have returned to that winter from back then. It was that winter when Murong kicked himself off the cliff. I'm afraid I have to thank Ling Murong for being where I am today. I just don't know how those old friends from that day are doing now. Murong Yu's eyes flashed with a cold light. However, the strange thing was that when he revisited this place, he was reminded of the past. At this moment, Murong Yu's heart was no longer filled with hatred. Perhaps it was because he was strong and his vision was high. Those high and mighty people could only crawl at his feet and look up to him now. Yes, look up to him. In just 5 years, Murong Yu had reached the silent spirit stage and the power of 300 Pan Liang. His true strength could compete with tribulation passing stage and even transformation stage cultivators. And those so-called geniuses from back then were probably only at the foundation establishment stage or revolving reflection stage. In Murong Yu's eyes, the hatred from back then was just like children playing house. It had already gradually faded. Now his goal was to become an immortal, to pursue great power and immortality. Where is the heavenly spirit sect? Why did you attack the Leaf family? Murong Yu shook his head and collected his thoughts. He looked at the ground like a dead dog and asked coldly. The three of them looked at Murong Yu with frightened eyes. Their mouths squirmed, wanting to speak, but they could only make ah sounds. Looking at the three people's swollen faces and broken chins, Murong Yu couldn't help but feel depressed. I hit them too hard. How can I extort a confession? Originally, Murong Yu wanted to ask them about the heavenly spirit sect situation. Now, they couldn't even speak. How could he ask? Should he just kill them like this? Murong Yu furrowed his brows. He had already sentenced the three of them to death. But after killing them, how could he find the heavenly spirit sect? He didn't know anything about the heavenly spirit sect. Hichu, is there any way to get the information I want from them? Murong Yu pulled Hichu out of the Hichu Luoshu world and asked, Isn't it simple? Just read their memories. Hichu said indifferently. Murong Yu rolled his eyes. Hichu said it was simple, but he didn't know this kind of cultivation technique. Hichu didn't talk nonsense. He stretched out his hand and shot out a ray of light, which directly entered Murong Yu's body. Immediately, a memory appeared in Murong Yu's mind, the soul-searching technique. The soul-searching technique wasn't an offensive cultivation technique. It only had one use, to search the mind and read memories. The soul-searching technique wasn't complicated. Murong Yu only read it 3 times. After understanding it, he succeeded in cultivating this cultivation technique. Slowly arriving in front of a foundation establishment cultivator, Murong Yu stretched out his hand and covered the other party's head. Secretly, he had already activated the soul-searching technique. This was a very special cultivation technique. When Murong Yu activated the soul-searching technique, the scene in front of him suddenly changed. In the next moment, he entered a special space. This space was very large. There were many fragments stored inside, all of them of the foundation establishment cultivator's memories. With a thought, Murong Yu's mind directly rushed over. At this moment, the cultivator whose memory was read screamed in agony. Then, Murong Yu discovered that the space he was in had suddenly shattered, and all of his memories had disappeared in an instant. Murong Yu withdrew his hand in surprise. He discovered that the pitiful foundation establishment cultivator was already bleeding from all 7 orifices. He was dead. My mistake, my mistake. Murong Yu smiled embarrassedly. He arrived in front of another foundation establishment cultivator and began to read the memories. After his previous mistake, Murong Yu already had some experience in this matter. The next 2 guys didn't die in the process of reading their memories. Withdrawing his hand from the revolving radiance cultivator's head, Murong Yu sneered and shot out a palm. Bang! After an explosion, the corpses of the 3 people were blown to pieces. This was not Murong Yu's power, but the power of the black tribulation thunder. Heavenly Spirit Sect. Muronyu rose into the air. After identifying the direction in the void, he flew in the direction of the Heavenly Spirit Sect. As Muronyu originally thought, the Heavenly Spirit Sect was just one of the countless sects in the cultivation world. Its strength was not even as good as the Greenlight Sect. The strongest was the Heavenly Spirit Sect's Sect Master, a late Unity stage cultivator. In addition, there was an elder who had reached the Severed Soul stage. Apart from these two cultivators who could barely be considered experts, the remaining 100 or 200 cultivators were all trash. There were only a few out-of-body stage cultivators. This was read from the memories of the 3 disciples of the Heavenly Spirit Sect, so it shouldn't be false. However, there was a memory that made Muronyu frown. In recent years, the Heavenly Spirit Sect had begun to wantonly recruit disciples in the secular world. In these 3 years, they had even found more than 100 talented people in the secular world. Moreover, these disciples were all children. What made Muronyu most angry was that these people were directly captured by the Heavenly Spirit Sect. Regardless of whether they were from wealthy families or ordinary people, as long as they were found to be talented, they would all be captured. These people really deserved to die. Muronyu was full of killing intent. How many families had the Heavenly Spirit Sect destroyed? Just based on this point alone, they should all be killed. Controlling the Lee family was one of the ways the Heavenly Spirit Sect desperately wanted to recruit disciples. After all, the Heavenly Spirit Sect was not the only sect in the vicinity. The Great Xia dynasty was controlled by the Tianyin sect, one of the top 10 sects in the cultivation world. Once the Tianyin sect found out about their shady business, they would probably be uprooted overnight. Therefore, they set their sights on the Li family's Blessing House. A restaurant that opened all over the Great Xia dynasty was convenient for them to find disciples. However, Muronyu had a question. They recruited so many disciples, but did they have the resources? Without resources, it would be useless no matter how many disciples they recruited. They would not be able to develop at all. This Heavenly Spirit Sect is strange. Muronyu muttered in his heart. It was a pity that the 3 disciples had a low status in the Heavenly Spirit Sect and did not have much useful information. It did not matter if it was not enough. Muronyu had already arrived outside the Heavenly Spirit Sect. The spirit chi here is very rich. Just as he approached the Heavenly Spirit Sect, Muronyu felt a strong wave of spirit chi hit him in the face. The density of the spirit chi had far surpassed that of the Greenlight Sect by countless times. Although it was not comparable to the top 10 sects like the Zushinzong and the Hidden Fairy Valley, it was far from comparable to the average medium-sized sect. Is there a spirit vein under the Heavenly Spirit Sect? Muronyu was suddenly excited. There was only one possibility for such rich spirit chi, and that was that there was a spirit vein under the ground. No wonder the Heavenly Spirit Sect dares to recruit disciples. Even if they don't use any pills, the spirit chi here is enough for them to cultivate. Muronyu sneered in his heart. Breath-concealing technique. Muronyu hid his cultivation aura and sneaked into the Heavenly Spirit Sect. There was still a combination stage cultivator here. Muronyu had to find him and assassinate him directly. Otherwise, he did not have much confidence in fighting directly. Moreover, there were more than 100 innocent lives that they had captured here. If there was a big battle, the innocent would be affected. This was a situation that Muronyu did not want to see. Therefore, he had to find the sect master of the Heavenly Spirit Sect and the Severed Soul Stage expert and kill them. Chapter 179. Under the effect of the breath-holding technique and the army character formula, Muronyu entered the Heavenly Spirit Sect like a ghost. The Heavenly Spirit Sect wasn't very big, nor was it very complicated. However, it was divided into several mountain peaks. There were many buildings on each mountain peak. It seemed that these were the usual residences of the Heavenly Spirit Sect disciples. After entering the Heavenly Spirit Sect, the spirit chi became denser. If one cultivated here, their cultivation speed would definitely be several times faster than in the outside world. However, What made Morong feel strange was that the Heavenly Spirit sect master was only a cultivator at the form synthesis stage with such dense spirit chi. The strength of the entire sect was even worse. Moreover, they had only begun to recruit a large number of disciples in recent years. In fact, what Morong didn't know was that although the Heavenly Spirit sect had existed for a long time, such dense spirit chi had only appeared in recent years. Otherwise, no matter how bad the aptitude of the Heavenly Spirit sect's disciples was, they wouldn't be so trashy. Moreover, if the spirit chi in this place had always been so dense, it would have been taken away by other sects long ago. In the cultivation world, things like snatching grotto heavens and blessed lands happened every day. According to the memories of the 3 unlucky people from the Heavenly Spirit sect, Morong sneaked into the tallest mountain peak in the Heavenly Spirit sect without anyone noticing. It was also the peak with the densest spirit chi. This was the residence of the Heavenly Spirit sect's sect master and elders. Those sect masters and elders generally lived on this mountain peak. After setting foot on this mountain peak, Morong discovered that the spirit chi here was denser than in other places. It seemed that the dense spirit chi was emitted from this place. Could it be that there's a spirit vein suppressed under this mountain peak? Morong became more and more certain of his guess. There weren't many buildings on the mountain peak. Other than the main hall, there were only a few scattered buildings halfway up the mountain. These were the residences of the Heavenly Spirit sect's elders. Relying on the mysteries of the breath-holding technique and the army character formula, Morong sneaked into one of the buildings. Using his divine thought, he immediately found an old man sitting cross-legged in a room, cultivating. Out-of-body stage. Although Morong is only at the spirit tranquil stage, he has already reached 300 Pan Liang power, which is equivalent to the power of 3 horned dragons. Although the elder from the Heaven Spirit sect was in the out-of-body stage, he only had the strength of 2 horned dragons. He was even weaker than Morong. Therefore, when Morong saw him, he could tell his cultivation level at first glance. Why don't we kill him first? Morong muttered to himself. With his strength, killing this person was not difficult at all. However, he was afraid that if he killed this person, it would cause too much of a commotion and wake up the sect master of the Heaven Spirit sect, who was at the body integration stage. After thinking for a while, Morong finally decided to make a move. Morong took down the phoenix spear that had successfully evolved into an immortal item from his back. Then, he swaggered to the front of the room and kicked the door down. Bang! How could the wooden door withstand Morong's strength? With a single kick, it was smashed into smithereens. The sound of the door shattering also woke up the old man who was cultivating in the room, the elder of the Heaven's Spirit sect. The old man was awakened and opened his eyes. But in the next moment, he saw a black spearhead rapidly enlarging at an incomparably terrifying speed, stabbing towards him. The old man was suddenly inexplicably horrified. With a thought, he increased his strength and was about to retreat at the same time. But under Morong's well-prepared sneak attack, how could he escape? Puff! The black phoenix spear flickered with black power, like a black bolt of lightning. Under the attack of Morong's extreme strength, the spear had already pierced the old man's head before he could react. After an explosion, the tragic elder of the Heaven Spirit sect was stabbed to death by Morong's spear before he could even see who attacked him. Under absolute strength and speed, the elder of the Heaven Spirit sect, who was in the out-of-body stage, was actually killed by Morong, who was only in the spirit tranquil stage. He tore off the storage pouch on the elder's waist. Although he knew that this elder might not have anything good, it was better than nothing. After leaving the building, Morong stealthily snuck into another building. Using the same method, in less than half a day, Morong killed the 5 elders of the Heaven Spirit sect. Now there was only a severed soul stage elder and the Heavenly Spirit sect master who was in the unification stage. In front of a building, Morong hid his figure. There was a powerful aura in front. It should be the severed soul stage elder. With Morong's current strength, I'm afraid that he can't kill this elder in one blow. Of course, Morong is not unable to kill him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come here alone. After pondering for a moment, Muronyu decided to let go of this severed soul stage elder first. Let's kill the heavenly spirit sect master first. Muronyu quietly left the building and quickly went up to the top of the mountain. He carefully released his divine sense to observe the hall, but to Murongyu's surprise, there was no one in the hall or even in the nearby buildings. Did the heavenly spirit sect master go out? Murongyu's face suddenly became gloomy. If this guy is really not in the heavenly spirit sect, so what if Muronyu destroyed the heavenly spirit sect? Once this guy finds out that the sect he created was uprooted, he will definitely go crazy and take revenge. Muronyu doesn't care. You dare to take revenge? Then I'll destroy you. It's just that Muronyu has the strength, but Li Feng's family doesn't. Moreover, Muronyu can't stay by Li Feng's side to protect them all his life. It is precisely because of this mentality that Muronyu wants to uproot the heavenly spirit sect, not leaving a single one alive. Suddenly, Muronyu slapped his forehead. At this time, he remembered that the memories of the 3 disciples of the heavenly spirit sect seemed to say that the sect master has been in seclusion for half a year. Seclusion, of course, is not here. It should be in a nearby cave or other forbidden area of the heavenly spirit sect. Since that's the case, let's deal with that severed soul stage elder first. I don't believe that you won't come out. Muronyu sneered, then extended his hand and retrieved the Cosmos Bow from the He-Tu and Luo-Shu worlds. With this treasure in hand, Muronyu didn't even bother to fight with the severed soul stage elder. After all, although he is confident in killing the elder with his strength, it will take a certain amount of time. If during that process, the sect master of the heavenly spirit sect is awakened and joined forces to deal with Muronyu, I'm afraid that Muronyu won't be able to kill them. Bow and arrow. Shio, the shocking heaven arrow turned into a golden light and tore a crack in the void, quickly disappearing from Muronyu's sight. The target can also kill people in the room below. This is the magic of the Cosmos Bow and shocking heaven arrow. As long as Muronyu locked onto that person's aura, no matter where they were, the heaven-shaking arrow would automatically attack the target as soon as it was released. The severed soul stage elder who was cultivating suddenly trembled in his heart. An extremely dangerous and terrifying aura appeared in his heart. This is the aura of death. The severed soul stage elder suddenly felt strange. He is in the sect. How can there be such a dangerous feeling? Is someone trying to kill him? Chi! The severed soul stage elder's face suddenly changed. He even heard a sharp aura with the aura of destruction coming towards him. No longer hesitating, the severed soul stage elder roared, and his figure suddenly rose into the air. Boom! A terrifying power burst out, and the building where the severed soul stage elder was suddenly shattered by the power that burst out like a stormy sea. And he had already soared into the air. Chi! At this moment, a golden light flew over from afar. The severed soul stage elder roared and instantly raised his strength to the limit. Boom! The sky shook and the void distorted. 20 horned dragons appeared out of thin air above his head. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws, emitting a terrifying aura that covered the sky and the earth. The severed soul stage elder roared and condensed the power of 20 horned dragons and fiercely blasted at the golden light that shot over. Boom! A terrifying aura shattered heaven and earth as it shot out. However, his opponent was the shocking heaven arrow. One must know that when he was still in the fusion stage, Muronyu used the shocking heaven arrow to kill a severed soul stage cultivator. What's more, Muronyu's strength was now comparable to the out-of-body stage. After a loud explosion, the power of the severed soul stage elder was completely vulnerable in front of the shocking heaven arrow and directly shattered. However, the shocking heaven arrow seemed to be unhindered. It tore through the void and turned into a golden light, shooting towards the severed soul stage elder. The severed soul stage elder was shocked. His body swayed, and he immediately retreated. During this process, he took out a flying sword, condensed his strength to the limit, and attacked again. Bang! However, In front of the shocking heaven arrow, his strength was still vulnerable. Boom! In the end, after the severed soul stage elder attacked 3 times in a row without success, the shocking heaven arrow finally bombarded his body. A terrifying power directly exploded, and the fragile body of the severed soul stage elder was immediately blown apart, bursting into a cloud of blood mist. The only severed soul stage elder of the heavenly spirit sect was killed. Shio. After killing the severed soul stage elder, the shocking heaven arrow once again turned into a golden light and flew back. The loud noise caused by the previous battle had already alarmed the disciples of the heavenly spirit sect. However, the sect master of the heavenly spirit sect, who was in seclusion, was still nowhere to be seen. He didn't wake up from such a big movement. Moron Yu frowned slightly. Even if he was in seclusion, the sect master of the heavenly spirit sect should have been awakened by the movement just now. But obviously not now. Is this guy already dead? Or is he in seclusion deep underground? Moron Yu instantly thought of a possibility. Chapter 180. It was very likely that there was a spirit vein suppressed under the heavenly spirit sect, and the sect master of the heavenly spirit sect had not come out for a long time. It was very likely that he was in seclusion near the spirit vein. Moron Yu instantly thought of this possibility. Since you're not coming out, Moron Yu sneered. Then, with a flash of his body, he disappeared from where he stood. Ah, ah, ah. The next moment, there were waves of screams one after another. Just based on the day that they forcibly abducted children from the secular world to become their disciples, they all deserve to die. Therefore, after killing the elders at the spirit severing stage, Moron Yu began a massacre. Using the troops formula, his figure was like a stream of light that constantly shuttled back and forth in the heavenly spirit sect. Wherever he passed, there was a cloud of blood mist and screams that rose one after another. It didn't take long for the 100 to 200 disciples of the heavenly spirit sect to be all killed by Moron Yu. The strength of these disciples was so low that they didn't even have time to escape. After killing these disciples, Moron Yu found the children that they had abducted. There were more than 100, nearly 200, and each of them had good aptitude. There were nearly 200 families, and the heavenly spirit sect had destroyed 200 families just like that. And if Moron Yu didn't stop them, they would have destroyed more families in the future. With a wave of his hand, these frightened children were directly taken into the Hichu Luoshu world. He didn't have time to comfort these disciples. His main purpose now was to find the sect master of the heavenly spirit sect. He was the culprit of all this. In the end, after searching for half a day, Moron Yu finally found an extremely secretive entrance in a large hall on the highest peak of the heavenly spirit sect. If it weren't for the fact that the spirit chi here was much denser than in other places, Moron Yu wouldn't have been able to find this entrance. This was a long tunnel. As soon as he entered the bend, Moron Yu felt that the spirit chi here was at least several times denser than outside. There must be a spirit vein below. Moron Yu's eyes lit up as he became even more certain. Then he sped down the zigzagging path that led downwards. Moron Yu didn't know how far he had walked, but he was already dozens of miles deep underground. However, there was still no end to the tunnel. However, the spirit chi was getting denser and denser. No wonder no one noticed such a huge commotion on the surface. It turns out that this tunnel is so deep. Moron Yu thought to himself with a strange expression as he sped along. Not to mention that the commotion just now wasn't very big. Even if it was a few times bigger, it probably wouldn't be able to reach here. Finally, after galloping for a period of time, Moron Yu suddenly opened up in front of him. At this time, Moron Yu had already entered an underground karst cave that was similar to the 9th level spiritual vein in the extreme heavenly realm. Moron Yu used the breath concealing technique to conceal his aura, and then carefully sneaked forward. Rumble. Before walking far, Moron Yu heard the sound of flowing water in front of him. Moron Yu's face showed a strange expression. Could it be that all the spirit veins exist in the underground Karst cave and transform into an underground river? Moron, couldn't help but think so. The chaos spirit vein in the depths of the Demon Mountain was the same. The ninth-level spiritual vein in the extreme heavenly realm was the same, and it was the same here. Soon after, a rushing underground river appeared in front of Moron. Although it was far from a ninth-level spiritual vein in the extreme heavenly realm, it was not bad. It was equivalent to half of an ordinary river, and the flow was rapid. It's at least a second-level spiritual vein. After seeing the spirit vein, Moron's eyes suddenly lit up. This spirit vein was even more advanced than the one he subdued in the extreme heavenly realm's ruins. Moreover, it was not very advanced. Moron thought that he should be able to subdue it. However, Moron was not too excited. There was still a cultivator at the form synthesis stage on the Karst cave surface. Finally, under Moron's search, he found the sect master of the Heaven Spirit sect, who was in seclusion in a stone room. Seeing that the sect master was still in seclusion and had no idea of his arrival, Moron couldn't help but show a sinister smile on his face. Then, he took out the bow of Cosmos and the sky-shaking arrow. He planned to use the bow of Cosmos to directly kill this guy, who was a little troublesome for him now. After all, the sect master was at the form synthesis stage. Without these treasures, Moron was really not sure that he could kill him. Swish! Just as Moron had just pulled the bow and arrow, the sect master of the Heaven Spirit sect inside seemed to have sensed something, and his eyes, which were originally closed, suddenly opened. Their eyes met. At this moment, both of them were shocked. In particular, Moron was so scared that he suddenly loosened his hand that had just pulled the bow slightly. However, even so, the sky-shaking arrow turned into a ray of golden light, tore through the void, and shot towards the sect master of the Heaven Spirit sect in the stone room in front of him. The sect master of the Heaven Spirit sect roared angrily. This guy was able to sneak into the incomparably secretive tunnel without him noticing. Then, it was very likely that his sect had already been destroyed by this guy, and this guy actually wanted to kill him. With a swish, this guy didn't even get up. He just sat cross-legged on the ground and disappeared in a thin air. At the same time, Moron suddenly felt a sense of danger in his heart. He immediately took out the purple ribbon holy robe. With a bang, Moron's body was suddenly enveloped by a layer of purple halo. It was the protective effect of the purple ribbon holy robe. At the same time, Moron held the bow of Cosmos, which weighed 108,000 kilograms, and fiercely slashed at the void in front of him. Boom! A huge hand suddenly blasted out of the void, and it collided with Moron's bow of Cosmos. After a loud bang, Moron was hit hard, and his entire body was sent flying with the bow of Cosmos. Bang! 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 This was underground, and the underground Karst cave was too small. Therefore, Moron directly blasted the walls of the underground Karst cave. A huge force exploded, and wherever Moron passed, even the hardest stone was directly shattered. After being blasted a few miles away, Moron finally stabilized his body. In front of him, there was a long human-shaped tunnel that led directly to the sect master of the Heaven Spirit sect. Didn't you say that this Hundun was only at the combination stage? How could he teleport? Moron roared in his heart, feeling very unhappy. Yes, he was just unhappy, although the sect master of the Heaven Spirit sect caught him off guard. Don't forget that his body had reached the level of a 7th grade spiritual weapon, and he was protected by the purple ribbon holy robe. This kind of attack looked very terrifying, but it couldn't hurt him at all. Very unhappy, Moron put away the bow of Cosmos in the Hichu Luoshu world and pulled out the phoenix spear on his back. His body swayed, and he turned into a stream of light, rushing towards the sect master of the Heaven Spirit sect, who was at the crossing calamity stage. Teleportation could only be comprehended by cultivators who had reached the crossing calamity stage. Since the sect master of the Heaven Spirit sect could teleport, he was naturally at the crossing calamity stage. However, Even if the other party was at the crossing calamity stage, he wasn't afraid. At most, he would escape. He didn't believe that the sect master of the Heaven Spirit sect could kill him. Seeing that Muronyu was sent flying by his punch, the sect master of the Heaven Spirit sect's eyes flashed with a cold light. His body swayed, and he wanted to take advantage of the situation to chase after and kill Muronyu in one fell swoop. However, just as he was about to teleport, he felt a dangerous aura lock onto him. The sect master of the Heaven Spirit sect was shocked. He turned his head and saw that the golden arrow had turned around and was shooting towards him. "You're courting death." The sect master of the Heaven Spirit sect shouted and punched out. Boom! A terrifying power burst out, and the terrible impact sent the heaven-shaking arrow flying. Just when the sect master of the Heaven Spirit sect thought that he had destroyed the heaven-shaking arrow, the shocking heaven arrow once again let out a sharp piercing sound as it continued to attack him. With a cold snort, the sect master of the Heaven Spirit sect teleported and appeared at the side of the heaven-shaking arrow. He stretched out his hand and was about to grab the heaven-shaking arrow. However, the heaven-shaking arrow seemed to have a life of its own. Seeing that the sect master was about to grab it, it suddenly accelerated and rushed forward, avoiding the sect master's attack. Then, it turned around again and shot towards the sect master of the Heaven Spirit sect. It would not stop until one of them died. A treasure. At this moment, the sect master of the Heaven Spirit sect finally discovered the magic of the heaven-shaking arrow. With a sigh, his body swayed and he teleported towards the heaven-shaking arrow. He wanted to take the heaven-shaking arrow for his own. Unfortunately, how could the heaven-shaking arrow be willing to be caught? Even if the sect master of the Heaven Spirit sect could teleport, he would not be able to catch up with his speed. For a moment, the underground cave flickered with light and power, and there were figures everywhere. Dot! At this moment, Muronyu finally rushed out. With a loud shout, 300 incomparably condensed, coiled dragon phantoms burst out from the top of his head. He stabbed his spear towards the sect master of the Heaven Spirit sect. Boom! A terrifying power burst out, and the entire underground cave could no longer withstand the impact of such a terrifying power. It immediately shattered and began to collapse. "You're courting death." The sect master of the Heaven Spirit sect shouted angrily. After such a long time, he still couldn't subdue an arrow, which made him feel humiliated. Moreover, he also guessed that Muronyu had already recognized this divine arrow as its master. If he wanted to subdue this divine arrow, he must first kill Muronyu. With a punch, the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. A terrifying power burst out and swept across a radius of dozens of miles. Rumble. Under the impact of the two's terrifying power, the earth began to collapse, burying everyone. Muronyu was wearing an immortal robe and holding an immortal artifact. The power of 300 dragons was above his head. A terrifying power burst out, and the surrounding collapsed soil and gravel couldn't get close to him. However, it also affected his vision. With a thought, Muronyu used the army formula and turned into a stream of light. He broke through the earth and rushed toward the surface. Chapter 181. Boom! The originally peaceful Heaven's Spirit sect suddenly let out an earth-shattering noise. At the same time, a terrifying aura erupted from the ground. Then, half of the Heaven Spirit sect was directly shattered by this terrifying aura. Then, two streaks of light shot up into the sky from the ground one after the other, shooting toward the void. It was Muronyu and the sect master, who were originally fighting underground. Although the two of them were powerful, it was difficult for them to display their skills underground. Muronyu's speed was unparalleled in the world as he used the troop formula and directly shot up into the sky. The sect master of the Heaven Spirit sect followed closely behind. He was like a shadow attached to the body, like a gangrene attached to the bone. Looking at the half of the Heaven Spirit sect that was destroyed by the power of the two of them, Muronyu couldn't help but feel lucky. If he hadn't put those innocent children into the Hichu Luoshu before entering the tunnel, they would have been dead by now. Give me your life. The sect master of the Heaven Spirit sect was furious when he saw this scene. He roared and reached out his hand to grab Moronyu. Moronyu sneered and poured 300 dragon power into the long spear in his hand. Then he fiercely stabbed out. Boom! The two of them fiercely collided, and a terrifying power burst out. After the earth-shattering noise, the surrounding void was directly torn apart by them like a piece of cloth, creating a huge crack. The terrifying impact was like a stormy sea that swept in all directions. Fortunately, this was the void. Otherwise, even the 10,000 feet tall mountain wouldn't be able to withstand such a terrifying aura and would be instantly blasted into powder. It was as if he had been hit by a heavy blow, as if a divine mountain had violently bombarded his body. Moronyu couldn't help but groan. The chi and blood in his body surged like a raging river. Whoosh! Involuntarily, Moronyu was suddenly sent flying, like a broken rag doll floating into the distance. On the other hand, the sect master of the Heaven Spirit sect only trembled slightly. Then, he teleported and disappeared on the spot, chasing after Moronyu. Moronyu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and narrowed his eyes. This seemed to be his first time facing a tribulation passing stage cultivator. If it weren't for the fact that he had the purple ribbon immortal robe and his physical body had reached the level of a grade 7 spirit artifact, he would have been shattered into pieces by that attack. But even so, he was not in a good state, even though he would not be killed by the other party for the time being. However, he couldn't do anything to a tribulation transcending cultivator. However, Moronyu definitely had more tricks up his sleeves. If that was all, he wouldn't have dared to attack the Heaven Spirit sect alone. Chi. The void shattered as a golden light tore through space and time and shot towards the sect master of the Heavenly Spirit sect. The heaven-shaking arrow was a heaven-shaking arrow that would not rest until the target was killed. Even the sect master of the Heavenly Spirit sect, who was teleporting, was unable to dodge the attack of the shocking sky arrow. As long as it locked onto the target, it would not rest until the target was dead. Sensing the heaven-shaking arrow's ferocious momentum, the sect master of the Heavenly Spirit sect could only helplessly turn around and punch the heaven-shaking arrow. Black, chaotic energy lingered on the surface of Muronyu's body, firmly protecting him. Amidst the circles of black energy, one could faintly see streaks of black, lightning-like energy. It was the appearance of the black tribulation lightning from that day. Crackle. When Moronyu circulated his energy, he could faintly hear the sound of flowing lightning. That black tribulation lightning seems to be very terrifying, and my own energy contains the black tribulation lightning. I wonder if I can convert all my energy into black tribulation lightning? At this moment, Moronyu suddenly had this strange thought. With a thought, Moronyu was about to convert his energy into black tribulation lightning. This was originally just a flash of inspiration, but in the next moment, a scene that left Moronyu dumbstruck appeared. Crackle. At the same time, the energy emanating from his body and even the surface of his body instantly turned into black tribulation lightning. Streaks of black tribulation lightning lingered on the surface of Muronyu's body, circulating within his body. In an instant, Muronyu's entire body was surrounded by black lightning. But that wasn't all. Just as all of Muronyu's energy was being converted into black tribulation lightning, dark clouds began to condense above his head. Strands of oppressive aura began to emanate from the dark clouds, suppressing the heavens and earth. Tribulation clouds. Feeling the pressure emanating from the sky, the sect master of the Heavenly Spirit sect, who was fighting the shocking sky arrow, couldn't help but raise his head to take a look. In the next moment, he roared with a face full of horror. Tribulation clouds. Was someone going through a tribulation? Hearing the sect master's terrified cry, Moronyu couldn't help but look at the void strangely. Then, he saw the tribulation clouds getting denser and denser. There were even tribulation lightning flashing within the clouds. Why would tribulation clouds appear out of nowhere? Was this guy about to go through a tribulation? Morong looked at the sect master of the Heavenly Spirit sect suspiciously. However, no matter how he looked at him, this guy didn't look like he was in the late stage of the tribulation. No matter how he looked at him, this guy looked like he had just broken through to the tribulation stage. How could he summon tribulation lightning at such a time? All cultivators in the late stage of the tribulation had to face the heavenly tribulation, the 49 heavenly tribulations. Apart from that, most cultivators wouldn't go through a tribulation before reaching this stage. Moreover, looking at the tribulation clouds in the sky, Morong vaguely felt that there seemed to be some kind of connection between him and the tribulation clouds. Could it be that these tribulation clouds were summoned by me? Morong's heart suddenly moved. Then he tried to control the tribulation lightning in the sky. Rumble. Morong originally just wanted to try to control the tribulation clouds, so he gave them an order to kill the sect master of the Heavenly Spirit sect. However, something that shocked Morong happened again. There were a lot of things that shocked him today. After an earth-shattering sound, a large amount of tribulation lightning was produced from the tribulation clouds. Then, with the power to destroy heaven and earth, it directly enveloped the sect master of the Heavenly Spirit sect. What's going on? Seeing the tribulation lightning that filled the void and enveloped him, the sect master of the Heavenly Spirit sect was scared half to death. Before this, he had personally seen a cultivator in the tribulation stage being directly blasted into ashes by lightning. He had just broken through to the tribulation stage, so he didn't expect to attract a tribulation so quickly. Now, looking at the menacing tribulation lightning that had the power to destroy heaven and earth, he wanted to cry in his heart. Kill! He punched the heaven-shaking arrow away, then took out a flying sword of the spiritual weapon rank from his storage bag. He poured all his strength into his body, then slashed at the tribulation lightning that was bombarding him. Rumble! A terrifying sword light tore through the void and shattered the firmament. It soared into the sky and violently slashed at the tribulation lightning that was bombarding him. However, what made the sect master of the Heavenly Spirit sect despair was that although his all-out attack made the tribulation lightning a little dimmer and smaller, it couldn't shatter the tribulation lightning at all. The tribulation lightning was still ferociously enveloping him. Whoosh! With a teleport, the sect master of the Heavenly Spirit sect appeared in the distance, narrowly avoiding the attack of the tribulation lightning. The Heavenly Spirit sect under their feet was bombarded by the terrifying tribulation lightning and instantly turned into fine powder, no longer existing. At this time, Morong, who was far away from the sect master of the Heavenly Spirit sect, also looked at the tribulation lightning with a shocked expression. He was dumbfounded, and his face was full of disbelief. I can control the tribulation lightning? What's going on? Morong roared in his heart, very puzzled. However, who could give Morong an answer? Even he himself couldn't. Maybe it's because of the black tribulation lightning that I have some kind of connection with the tribulation cloud. Morong thought to himself. What Morong didn't know was that the black tribulation lightning wasn't an ordinary tribulation lightning. Controlling the tribulation lightning was only one of the most basic abilities of the black tribulation lightning. Looking at the sect master of the Heavenly Spirit sect, who was constantly dodging the tribulation lightning, the corners of Morong's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a strange smile. Kill him for me, Morong sneered, and in his heart, he constantly commanded the tribulation cloud to continuously bombard the sect master of the Heavenly Spirit sect with endless tribulation lightning. He held a long spear that was covered with black lightning, and with the troop formula under his feet, he turned into a streamer and rushed toward the sect master of the Heavenly Spirit sect. Chi, the sect master of the Heavenly Spirit sect, who was dodging the tribulation lightning, suddenly heard a sharp, piercing sound coming from behind him. At the same time, a dangerous aura rose from him. Without thinking, the sect master of the Heavenly Spirit sect slashed behind him with his sword. Boom! A huge sword light tore out and slashed toward Morong, who was trying to assassinate him. The terrifying power directly slashed on the long spear, almost sending it flying. However, because the long spear was covered with black lightning, the sword light of the sect master of the heavenly spirit sect instantly collapsed when it came into contact with the black lightning. It couldn't continue to attack. Kill! Moronyu let out a low roar from his throat, and the long spear shook violently. Suddenly, endless black lightning spewed out and enveloped the sect master of the heavenly spirit sect. The power of the lightning was even more terrifying than the tribulation lightning above their heads. At the same time, the tribulation lightning and the sky-shaking arrow in the sky tore through the air. The sect master of the heavenly spirit sect couldn't take care of them at the same time. The three attacks were equally terrifying. No matter which one hit him, the sect master of the heavenly spirit sect would at least be severely injured. The sect master of the heavenly spirit sect was filled with murderous intent. He sneered and disappeared in a flash. Teleportation. Come out. Moronyu roared angrily, and the phoenix spear swept across the void. Bang! The void shattered, and a figure was directly shattered by Moronyu and blasted out of the void. At the same time, the tribulation lightning that filled the sky had already enveloped him. The sect master of the heavenly spirit sect had a horrified look on his face. His body swayed, and he was already charging toward Moronyu. At the same time, he reached out his big hand to grab Moronyu. You want me to die? I'll kill you first. Chapter 182. Boom! Just as the sect master of the heavenly spirit sect grabbed Moronyu with a sinister smile, a ball of terrifying black lightning erupted from Moronyu's body. With Moronyu's body as the center, the black lightning swept in all directions, especially the sect master of the heavenly spirit sect, who contained most of the black lightning. The sect master of the heavenly spirit sect screamed, and the big hand that reached out was caught in the black lightning. The black lightning, which was the lightning transformed from the black tribulation lightning, could even control the tribulation lightning. It was much more powerful than the ordinary tribulation lightning. The sect master of the heavenly spirit sect grabbed over, as if his hand had automatically reached into the black lightning. Bang! The sect master of the heavenly spirit sect roared, and then his big hand was instantly turned into powder under the strangling of the black lightning. The sect master of the heavenly spirit sect didn't even have time to react, which showed how terrifying the black tribulation lightning was. Puff! One of his hands was directly crushed into powder, and the sect master of the heavenly spirit sect's face twisted in pain. Under the intense pain, his body swayed, and he retreated like a conditioned reflex. However, he forgot about the sky-shaking arrow that had been chasing after him. Just as he retreated, the heaven-shaking arrow turned into a ray of golden light and blasted into his body from behind. Then, it shot out from front with a layer of flesh and blood. A big hole appeared in his left chest, where his heart was. Under the terrifying power of the sky-shaking arrow, the sect master of the heavenly spirit sect's entire heart had been crushed. For Cultivator, losing the heart would mean death. However, it would definitely be a serious injury. Impossible. Looking down at the huge, bloody hole in his chest, the sect master of the heavenly spirit sect let out a cry. Rumble, at the same time, the endless tribulation lightning had already enveloped him. The terrifying tribulation lightning even shattered this part of the void. Standing in the middle of the tribulation lightning, Moronyu was like a spring breeze. Although the tribulation lightning bombarded him, he was unharmed. The tribulation lightning couldn't hurt him at all. However, the sect master of the heavenly spirit sect, who had been seriously injured, had been turned into ashes under the tribulation lightning. He was just a cultivator in the early stage of the tribulation realm. Although Moronyu's heavenly thunder was only the power of an ordinary tribulation thunder. However, don't forget that the tribulation lightning was the most terrifying attack power in this world. It was second to none. Between heaven and earth, the power of primal chaos was the source of everything, and it was also the highest level. However, the power of chaos was not very strong. Why did he say that? Everyone knew that tribulation lightning would descend when one transcended a tribulation. Why was it tribulation lightning, and not some other power? One had to know that primal chaos energy was definitely of a higher level than tribulation lightning. This was because the tribulation lightning was the most powerful. In terms of lethality, there was no power that could compare to the tribulation lightning, not even the power of chaos. It could be said that tribulation lightning or lightning was the strongest offensive force in the world. Of course, this was just a general statement. Even the same type of power had differences in strength. For example, the lightning of nature was very frightening to ordinary people. However, some cultivators with high cultivation bases were not afraid of this lightning. Even tribulation lightning had differences in strength. However, no matter what, the tribulation lightning was the nemesis of all cultivators and life forms. Especially for cultivators, their fear of tribulation lightning came from their souls. After all, the cultivation world and even the immortal cultivation world had existed for so many years. How many cultivators had died under the tribulation lightning? The number was more than the number of sand in the Ganges. The reason why Murong you could kill the Heavenly Spirit sect's sect master so easily was because the sect master had panicked after seeing the tribulation lightning. That was why Murong you had been able to kill him so easily. Otherwise, it would have been difficult for Murong you to kill him. Even killing him was a problem. The tribulation lightning had dissipated. The Heavenly Spirit sect underground had long been flattened by the aftermath of the battle between the two and the tribulation lightning. From now on, the Heavenly Spirit sect no longer existed. However, perhaps because the ground had collapsed, spiritual energy that was many times denser than before seeped up from the ground. With a flash, Murong you had already rushed into the ground. The battle just now and the tribulation lightning had caused too much of a commotion. If he did not quickly take away this spirit vein, it would really be a waste of effort if he provoked some powerhouse. Murong yu's worries were not unfounded. Although the Heavenly Spirit sect was located in a remote place, cultivators would occasionally pass by here. The battle just now, especially the tribulation lightning, could be felt from hundreds of miles away. At this time, it had already attracted the attention of some cultivators. After descending into the depths of the ground again, Murong yu frowned as he looked at the river-like spirit vein in front of him. How can I take away such a spirit vein? It's practically a river. Murong yu furrowed his brows in helplessness. When Murong yu was in the extreme celestial realm ruins, the spirit vein that he had subdued was in the shape of a dragon. It could be subdued that way. But now it was a river. Could it be that he could capture this river and bring it to the Hichu Luoshu world? Yes, that must be it. Murong yu relaxed his brows and then rushed into the sky. He left the ground and floated in the void. He took a deep breath and then stretched out a big hand. It covered the sky and covered the earth, directly grabbing down. The hard ground was like tofu in front of Murong yu's big hand. It could not stop Murong yu's big hand at all. Soon, the big hand that Murong yu had transformed into grabbed the underground spirit vein through the layers of earth. Rise! Murong yu roared and his power erupted. The big hand grabbed the spirit vein and then pulled hard, about to grab the spirit vein. Roar! Just as Murong yu was about to grab the spirit vein, a terrifying dragon-like roar came from the depths of the earth. At the same time, Murong yu felt that the big hand that he had transformed into was violently shaken away by a strong force. Roar! Another dragon roar came from the ground. In the next moment, the earth shattered and a terrifying aura rose from the ground. This was an existence that was like a divine dragon. It was the dragon form that the spirit vein had transformed into. The dragon-shaped spirit vein was like the Milky Way on the horizon, huge and long. At this moment, the spirit vein had shattered the earth and was about to fly into the distance. Where do you think you're going? How could Murong yu allow the duck that was in his mouth to fly away just like that? Looking at the appearance of the spirit vein, It was many times bigger than the one that he had subdued previously. With a low roar, he stretched out his big hand, covering half the sky, and grabbed at the spirit vein fiercely. The dragon-shaped spirit vein emitted a powerful and terrifying aura. Wherever it passed, the void would shatter. This was the power that the spirit vein itself had. If the spirit vein was hidden underground, it would be like a river. Other than the rich spiritual energy, it did not have any lethality. However, once it transformed into a dragon, it would possess extremely terrifying power. Although it was not good at attacking, it was enough to escape. In the void, the spirit vein went on a rampage. Wherever it passed, the void would be shattered. Even the giant hand that Muronyu had conjured was smashed to pieces by the collision. However, the speed of the spirit vein was fast, but when Muronyu used the army formula, no matter how fast it was, it could not shake off Muronyu. After a while, Muronyu's big hand was smashed into pieces before it could even get close to the spirit vein. Not to mention subduing the spirit vein. Muronyu was getting more and more anxious. The commotion was getting louder and louder. Once a powerhouse discovered it, this spirit vein would not be fated with him. I don't believe that you're stronger than the tribulation lightning. Muronyu made up his mind. Once again, he stretched out his big hand, which was formed by black tribulation lightning. At the same time, the sky they were in was filled with tribulation clouds. Countless tribulation lightning filled the entire space and shrouded them. Roar! In the face of the overwhelming tribulation lightning, the spiritual vein seemed to be extremely terrifying. It actually turned around and slammed into the ground. Once it entered the ground, it would be even more difficult for Muronyu to subdue the spirit vein. The big hand stretched out again and grabbed the spirit vein. At the same time, he threw out the Hichu Luo Shu. Swish! The He-Tu and the Luo Shu expanded with the wind, instantly covering this part of the world and enveloping the entire land. Take it! Muronyu roared as the He-Tu and the Luo Shu came crashing down, enveloping the spirit vein that was hiding in the air. With a swish, the spirit vein disappeared. It was sucked in by the Hichu Luo Shu. Seeing this, Muronyu could not help but slap his forehead. If he had known that the Hichu Luo Shu was so useful, he would not have wasted so much effort. He could have just used the Hichu Luo Shu. Reaching out his hand to summon the Hichu Luo Shu, Muronyu's figure flashed and disappeared. Just after he disappeared, a stream of light flew over from afar. It was a powerhouse who could fly physically. His strength should be above the out-of-body stage. Looking at the heaven spirit sect that had been raised to the ground and the incomparably dense spiritual chi in the air, the cultivator's face changed. Then, he soared into the sky and quickly disappeared into the distant horizon. In the Hichu Luo Shu world, Muronyu had completely subdued the spirit vein. At this moment, Muronyu was laughing heartily. Fourth grade spirit vein. It's a fourth grade spirit vein. It turned out to be a fourth grade spirit vein. This spirit vein alone was more than enough to provide for hundreds of thousands of disciples of the top 10 sects, let alone the Heaven Spirit sect, which only had 100 or 200 disciples. It was no wonder that the Heaven Spirit sect wanted to recruit disciples. With such a spirit vein, after thousands of years of development, even if it could not become a behemoth like the top 10 sects, it could still become a first-class sect. However, it was obvious that the Heaven Spirit sect was extremely secretive about this. It could even be said that they had only discovered this spirit vein not long ago. Otherwise, they would not have started to recruit disciples in recent years. Otherwise, the Heaven Spirit sect would have developed long ago. We've made a fortune this time. Muronyu was very happy. Originally, he just wanted to eradicate the small Heaven's Spirit sect and protect the Lee family. He did not expect to have such a big harvest. Could it be that this was called traveling far and wide in search of something, only to find it without any effort? Chapter 183. Great Xia Dynasty and E City Li Family. Murong Yu had been gone for a long time, and Li Feng's family was on tenterhooks. After all, they didn't know Murong Yu's strength. However, Zhang Ao, who had absolute confidence in Murong Yu, was not worried at all. Even if Murong Yu was no match for him, he had his own way of leaving. At this time, Li Feng was pacing back and forth in the hall worriedly, wanting to ask Zhang Ao. However, Zhang Ao just stood in a corner of the hall with an indifferent expression. He didn't say a single word. Although Zhang Ao was Murong Yu's subordinate and was sent by Murong Yu to protect Li Feng's family, he was still immortal. In front of Li Feng's family, a cultivator was equivalent to an immortal. Because of the difference in status, Li Feng and the others didn't dare to approach Zhang Ao. After all, Zhang Ao's status was there, suppressing them slightly. Whoosh! Just as they were worried and uneasy, the void in the hall suddenly distorted slightly, and then a figure suddenly appeared in front of them. Looking at the figure that appeared out of thin air, Li Feng's family was shocked. Zhang Ao immediately rushed out from the corner and looked at the person who suddenly appeared with vigilance. His mission was to protect everyone in the Li family. Before Murong Yu left, he had ordered that anyone who trespassed into the Li family should be killed without mercy. But soon, Zhang Ao retreated because he had seen who the person was. It was Murong Yu. Looking at the nervous and panicked Li Feng and the others, Murong Yu shook his head and sighed. Then he walked up with a smile on his face and said, "It's okay, the entire Heaven Spirit sect has been uprooted by me. From the ordinary disciples to the sect master, they were all killed by Murong Yu. Even if there were fish that escaped the net, they would have fled as far as possible. How would they dare to come back for revenge?" Hearing this, Li Feng and even Li Guo's eyes flashed. Li Feng even asked excitedly, "Really? You really uprooted them?" His tone was agitated and filled with disbelief. It was no wonder. They were just ordinary people. They did not have any understanding of Murong Yu's strength. Murong Yu nodded solemnly. "I've already killed all of them. You're all safe now." Although they didn't know how terrifying Murong Yu's strength was to be able to annihilate a sect, they didn't know. However, at this moment, Li Feng and even Li Guo believed Murong Yu. They had absolute faith in him without a single doubt. "Little Yu, thank you." After his excitement, Li Feng gradually calmed down. After all, he was no longer the young man for 5 years ago. He was now a top tycoon. Murong Yu patted Li Feng's shoulder and said with a smile, "What are you talking about? We are brothers, and I have long considered you as my family. Your matters are also my matters." In fact, this was indeed the case. Ever since they were young, Murong Yu and Li Feng had a very good relationship. Moreover, Li Guo also treated Murong Yu as his own son. Compared to Murong's home, without any feelings, this place was more like Murong Yu's home. "Haha, it's good that you're fine. It's good that you're fine." Li Guo laughed excitedly, his eyes filled with tears. He originally thought that his family would be wiped out, but he didn't expect that after Murong Yu returned, the situation would be reversed. "Right, there's one more thing to trouble you." Murong Yu smiled and suddenly remembered something. At the same time, he waved his hand, and suddenly hundreds of children of different ages appeared in the hall. These people are the children who were forcibly taken away by the Heavenly Spirit sect. I brought them all back. However, I'll have to trouble you to send them home. Seeing everyone's shocked expression, Murong Yu explained. "No problem," Li Feng said. At the same time, he called someone who looked like a housekeeper and ordered them to take care of these children and send them home in the shortest time possible. After all, the auspicious house was now the largest restaurant chain in the Great Xia dynasty. They were fully capable of sending these children home. Therefore, Murong Yu was quite relieved to hand these children over to Li Feng. Of course, he could also keep these children and train them as members of the chaos. However, with so many of them, what was the difference between them and the people of the Heavenly Spirit sect? It should be known that these children all had families. They were just forcibly taken away by the Heavenly Spirit sect. Now that this matter was resolved and there was no longer any threat to their lives, Li Feng's family regained their vitality. The Xiantian experts in the Li family's residence were also dismissed. With Murong Yu here, those Xiantian experts were not even ants. If even Murong Yu and the others were no match for them, then there was no point in keeping these people alive. For the past few days, the little fatty had been following Murong Yu everywhere like a shadow. The reason was none other than to learn Murong Yu's immortal technique. Murong Yu also liked this little fatty very much. Moreover, this little fatty was not just anyone. He was Li Feng's son, his nephew. Even if the little fatty did not have such thoughts, Murong Yu also had such thoughts. On this day, Murong Yu and Li Feng's family once again gathered in the hall. "Little Yu, what's the matter?" Seeing Murong Yu's expression, Li Feng's heart suddenly sank. He thought that something had happened. Seeing everyone's expression, Murong Yu was startled. Then he smiled and said, "It's nothing. I called everyone here because I have something to discuss with all of you." "What is it? If you have any problems, we will support you. You can decide for yourself," Li Feng said indifferently. Murong Yu smiled strangely. "Really?" Seeing Murong Yu's teasing smile, Li Feng's heart suddenly jumped. He was very familiar with Murong Yu's character. After seeing him like this, he was somewhat hesitant. Hurry up and say it. Don't be so wishy-washy." Li Feng smiled and did not answer Murong Yu's question. Instead, he changed the topic. Murong Yu coughed dryly and said, "You all know that I'm a cultivator. The Heavenly Spirit sect is also a small sect in the cultivation world. You all know that very well." Everyone looked at each other suspiciously. They did not know what Murong Yu meant. However, they still nodded. In front of cultivators, ordinary mortals, even the top experts of the secular world, Xiantian realm cultivators are no match for them. As for the Heavenly Spirit sect incident this time, I don't think it only happened to you all. Once you face a cultivator, you can only despair. Moreover, although the Heavenly Spirit sect has been uprooted by me this time, who knows if there will be an Earth Spirit sect or a Human Spirit sect next time. This time, fortunately, I came back and dealt with the Heavenly Spirit sect. Otherwise, your family would be finished. However, are you so lucky every time that I just happen to come back? Things can't be so coincidental. Hearing this, everyone in the Li family muttered to themselves. Their faces were grave. What Murong Yu said was the truth. "Little Yu, what do you mean? I'll let you all become cultivators. If you're willing to cultivate, I can increase your strength in a short time. Although you can't move unhindered in the cultivation world, ordinary small sects won't dare to touch you," Murong Yu said slowly. In fact, this was not Murong Yu's idea on the spot. In fact, he already had this idea before he was ready to come back. After all, Li Feng was his brother. As the saying goes, when a man achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs can ascend to heaven. Now that Murong Yu had the realm breaker pill, it was impossible for him not to make his brother stronger. If Li Feng and the others were willing, Murong Yu could even raise them to the body fusion stage. With the body fusion stage, although they were not the strongest in the cultivation world, they could definitely move unhindered in the secular world and protect themselves. Li Feng and the others looked at each other, not knowing what to do for a moment. In the world of cultivation, which ordinary person had not dreamed of flying in the sky and burrowing into the earth like cultivators, traveling 10,000 miles in a day? However, only a very small number of people could become cultivators. Most people could only dream about it in their hearts. Just like Li Feng's family, even the immature little fatty wanted to become an immortal. Of course, adults like them also had dreams. After a moment of silence, Li Gua excitedly said, "Can we still become cultivators?" With his age, although he was not 70 or 80 years old, he was more than 50 years old. Generally speaking, it was impossible for him to cultivate at this age. Moreover, he was an ordinary person who didn't even know martial arts. "You all can." Murong Yu nodded and said. He now had a large amount of resources. Even if he only used pills, he could directly increase their cultivation. "Uncle, I also want to become a cultivator." Little Fatty pitifully shook Murong Yu's trousers and said, "Don't worry, you will definitely become a cultivator." Murong Yu stroked Little Fatty's head and said with a smile. Then he turned his gaze to Li Feng and the others. Although I can make you powerful cultivators and have the power to protect yourselves. However, once you become a cultivator, you will become a common person in the cultivation world. The cultivation world is extremely cruel. The slightest carelessness will lead to death. Whether you want to become a cultivator or not, I hope you will carefully consider. After saying this, Muronyu floated out of the hall, leaving them to decide. Even if they were not willing to become cultivators, Muronyu would still teach little Fatty. Moreover, as long as Muronyu was in the cultivation world, he would not let anything happen to the Li family. Therefore, even if Li Feng and the others were not willing to become cultivators, he could still ensure that they would live peacefully for the rest of their lives. After Muronyu left, Li Gua, Li Feng, and Hanning looked at each other in dismay. They were still stunned by the news that they could also become cultivators. Becoming a cultivator, of course, would mean that they would have powerful strength and a long life. However, they would also be involved in the cruelty of the cultivation world. However, how many people would not be tempted by the temptation of having powerful strength and a long life? 3 days later, Muronyu once again gathered Li Feng and his family. He gave them a full 3 days to think carefully. However, the result was the same. The moment Muronyu appeared and saw the expressions of the three, Muronyu laughed. Chapter 184. We are all willing to become cultivators. Just as Muronyu expected, the three of them decided to become cultivators after 3 days. Powerful strength and life were fatally tempting. However, the feeling of helplessness and despair in front of the world of cultivators was the biggest reason why the three of them decided to become cultivators. Uncle, I also want to become a cultivator. Seeing that Muronyu had already agreed to his parents and grandfather, leaving him out, the little fatty couldn't help but say anxiously, "Don't worry, you have a share." Muronyu was a little embarrassed. The little fatty was too enthusiastic about becoming a cultivator. How was his little brain made up? He was only 3 years old, and he was already thinking about these things? Muronyu sat down and looked at the three of them. His expression gradually became serious. Since everyone has decided to become cultivators, then the moment I teach you the techniques, you will have already left the mortal world and become people of the world of cultivators. There's an unwritten rule in the world of cultivators. No one will stop the fights between cultivators. However, cultivators are absolutely not allowed to fight against ordinary people. Otherwise, if they are discovered, they will be killed. In reality, the situation that Muronyu mentioned was unavoidable. Even if Li Feng's family became cultivators, they would only be able to walk in the mortal world. Furthermore, they were running the Blessing Assembly building. It was inevitable that there would be friction with others. When there was friction, there would be disputes and even violence. Even the most ordinary foundation establishment stage cultivators were far from comparable to ordinary martial artists, let alone people with higher strength. If they were to kill ordinary people, a tragedy would naturally be unavoidable. You can use your strength to intimidate others, but you absolutely cannot kill them, Muronyu warned. Although he believed in Li Feng and Li Gua, many people would change after obtaining great strength. The three of them nodded. Then Muronyu explained the various taboos in the world of cultivators to the three of them in detail. Then, in the hall, Muronyu began to help the three of them build their foundation. Not to mention that Li Feng and his wife were already in their 20s. Li Gua was already in his 50s. The meridians and bones in his body had already hardened. Cultivating at this time? Basically, he didn't have any achievements. It was even difficult for him to build his foundation. It was precisely because of this that Muronyu did not hesitate to consume his own strength to help them build their foundation. As for the 3-year-old little fatty, Muronyu naturally did not leave him out. However, because the little fatty was too young, Muronyu was even more careful when helping him build his foundation. Within a short period of time, they would not be able to successfully build their foundation. Thus, Muronyu decided to stay at the Li clan for the time being. At the same time, Morong Yu had been discovered after he destroyed the Heavenly Spirit Sect. The news that the Heavenly Spirit Sect had been uprooted within a day quickly spread. Immediately, countless cultivators from various sects went to gather information. Seeing the terrifying scene of the ground being razed to the ground, as well as the dense spiritual energy that had yet to dissipate, these sects were shocked. Who destroyed the Heavenly Spirit Sect? Why was the Heaven's Spirit Sect, a mediocre sect, destroyed? What's with this dense heaven and earth spiritual chi? In the beginning, no one knew the answer. However, they soon found out the answer. The remaining dense heaven and earth spiritual chi was a spiritual vein. However, that spiritual vein had long been taken away by someone. With such dense heaven and earth spiritual chi, it was at least a third-grade spiritual vein. Someone asserted so. As soon as this was said, everyone was in an uproar. Many sects then realized that perhaps the destruction of the Heavenly Spirit Sect had something to do with this spiritual vein. A mediocre sect actually had a spiritual vein. Once it was discovered, it would naturally be the end of the family. For a moment, many people thought that this was the reason for the destruction of the Heavenly Spirit Sect. Even those first-rate sects might not have a spiritual vein. Moreover, it was a third-grade spiritual vein or a higher-grade spiritual vein. Even the top 10 sects could not help but be jealous. After all, a spiritual vein was not a recovery pill. How much was a third-grade spiritual vein worth? It was a priceless treasure. It cannot be measured by a recovery pill. Not only did they seize the spiritual vein, they even uprooted the Heavenly Spirit Sect without leaving a single one. That's too cruel. A sanctimonious guy said. Cruel? Someone sneered. Cultivation sects were just that cruel. If they did not kill, they would be killed. It was that simple. Moreover, a small sect like the Heavenly Spirit Sect was not qualified to have a spiritual vein. On this day, the people from the largest sect in the area, the Tianyin sect, came. Although there were countless cultivation sects in this area, the Sky Expanse sect was still the overlord. Countless sects were under the influence of the Sky Expanse sect. It could even be said that almost all the sects under its influence were affiliated with the Tianyin sect. These sects would pay a certain amount of medicinal pills to the Tianyin sect every year. It was similar to the tribute between secular countries. While enjoying the tributes, the Tianyin sect also had to protect these sections. The Heavenly Spirit sect was one of the Tianyin sect's affiliated sections. The Heavenly Spirit sect was extremely efficient. After the news of the Heavenly Spirit sect's destruction spread, an elder quickly appeared in the Heavenly Spirit sect. However, because he was not in the transformation stage, even though this elder was a cultivator in the tribulation stage, he could not reconstruct the situation at that time. Otherwise, when these people knew that it was the devil Morong Yu who destroyed the Heavenly Spirit sect, they would have dispersed. Who would dare to talk and laugh here? Perhaps Morong Yu would suddenly appear and wipe out their sect as well. After using a special method to transmit the matter here back to the sect, Wei Shuiyin looked at the raised Heavenly Spirit sect with an indifferent expression. If this place was not near the great Xia dynasties in East City and close to Morong's house, she would not have taken the initiative to come and investigate this matter. There were two disciples of the Tianyin sect beside Wei Shuiyin. They were the father and son Morong Hao and Morong Dan. Wei Shuiyin was Morong Dan's wife and Morong Hao's mother. She was also the mother of Morong Yu, who had been slapped to death by Morong Yu. Let's go back to Morong's house, Wei Shuiyin said faintly. Then she rose into the air and flew in the direction of an east city. As for Morong Dan and Morong Hao, they rode on their flying swords and closely followed. On this day, Morong Yu left the Li family after helping Li Feng and the other two build their foundation. He walked on the bustling streets of an east city. Walking aimlessly, his thoughts seemed to return to the past. The streets had not changed and were still so lively, but things had changed. Unknowingly, Morong Yu had walked to the door of Morong's house. Standing in front of the door of Morong's house and looking at the festive scene of Morong's house, Morong Yu's expression was a little strange. Was Morong's family holding a wedding? Although it had been a few days since he returned to any city, Murong Yu had been staying with the Li family and had not even come out. Therefore, Murong's family did not know that Murong Yu had returned. And Murong Yu, who had no feelings for Murong's family, did not even want to go back to Murong's house. Looking at the festive scene of Murong's house, Murong Yu stood in place and thought, although I have no feelings for Murong's family, my surname is Murong after all. Should I go in and have a look today? Murong Yu hesitated. Hey, why are you sneaking around in front of Murong's house? Hurry up and leave. Just when Murong Yu was hesitating, a servant of Murong's family caught a glimpse of Murong Yu and immediately came over with a fierce look. Murong Yu could not help showing a trace of disgust in his eyes. Murong's family was still the same. These servants were really annoying. It was because of Murong Yu's outstanding temperament and clothes. Murong Yu's clothes were transformed from the purple ribbon holy robe. If a person in ragged clothes stayed here for so long, he would have been driven away by these people. Even Murong Yu was being chased out of the room. Boy, what's wrong with your eyes? Do you know that this is Murong's house? Get out of here. Seeing Murong Yu's undisguised disgust, the servant of Murong's family immediately showed a murderous look and said to Murong Yu with a murderous look. Murong Yu's expression became even more disgusted. Damn it, you're courting death. The servant of Murong's family flew into a rage. With a roar, he viciously kicked at Murong Yu. From the looks of it, if Murong Yu had been an ordinary person, he would have been kicked to death. A trace of murderous intent flashed through his eyes. With a cold laugh, Murong Yu pointed a finger. Pooh! Blood splattered. The foot that had kicked at Murong Yu had been chopped off by Murong Yu. Although he could not attack ordinary people, Murong Yu did not use the power of a cultivator. Most importantly, this kind of person really deserved to die. If it had not been for Murong's family, he would have slapped this idiot to death. With a flash, Murong Yu avoided the servant and walked toward Murong's house. Only then did the servant whose leg had been chopped off let out an earth-shattering scream. The few people nearby who had witnessed all of this looked at Murong Yu with horrified eyes. What's the matter? Who's screaming here? At this time, an angry voice came from Murong's house, and then a figure walked out quickly. Seeing the person, Murong Yu's eyes showed an inexplicable smile and shouted, Murong, and who called my name? Murong and looked in the direction of the voice with incomparable anger. In the past few years, he had been doing well in Murong's family. Who dared to call him by his name? Plop. However, when Murong saw the person who called his name, his face changed instantly. He swallowed the words that he was about to curse. He was so frightened that he immediately fell to the ground. His face was full of horror, as if he had seen a devil. Chapter 185. Devil. That was a devil. That was a devil that had been hovering in his memory for several years, causing him incomparable pain. At this moment, Murong even had the heart to die. His whole body collapsed on the ground. Murong's face was full of horror, and the memories that had been sealed in his mind for many years once again appeared clearly in front of his eyes. That was a waste, although he was a collateral descendant of Murong's family. But he was a waste that was bullied by others. He had bullied this waste before. But suddenly one day, everything changed. That day, Murong would never forget it for the rest of his life. It was his nightmare. The waste in his eyes did not know what happened, but he suddenly became strong, and he just happened to hit the other party's spearhead. This demon almost beat you to death without saying a word. His limbs were crushed. Almost all the bones in his body were shattered, and half of his face was even beaten black and blue. It took him a full 2 years, and by chance, he had taken an immortal pill from the cultivation world to save his life. However, the scene at that time was still deeply engraved in his heart. The appearance of that devil always hovered in his mind. It was just that, fortunately, that devil soon went to cultivate immortality and left Murong's family. But today, this devil actually came back. Thinking of what happened that day, Murong Yu felt a burst of fear in his heart. He looked at Murong Yu in horror, and his eyes were full of horror. Looking at Murong An's appearance as if he had seen the devil, Murong Yu could not help but laugh in his heart. This bastard is afraid of being beaten by himself? At that time, he seemed to be very cruel. TSK, you were beaten by me like that, but you're still alive and kicking. I'm really curious. How did you cure it? Murong Yu slowly came in front of Murong Un and said with a smile. However, Murong Yu's smile looked like a devil's grin in Murong An's eyes. Cold, cruel, and very cruel. He's not going to beat me up again, is he? Murong suddenly had a bad idea. This devil was already so ferocious back then. Now that he was a cultivator, he was even less of a match for him. Cultivator? That's right, he's a cultivator. Murong suddenly roared angrily. His voice trembled as he said, Young Master Murong, you're a cultivator. You can't do anything to me. However, his trembling body revealed the fear in his heart. Hit you? Murong Yu found it very funny. The Kurdim naturally disdained to make a move against such ants. That was impossible. Answer my question, or else. Murong Yu glanced at Murong and Murong An's heart trembled. He felt a kind of gloomy and cold feeling. So he quickly said, I will definitely tell you everything I know. Murong's house is decorated with lanterns and streamers. Who's celebrating? It's Murong young Master Hao and his family have returned. The clan leader is very happy and is celebrating, fearing that Murong Yu would do something to him. Murong An quickly said, Murong Hao and his family, including his mother? A glint flashed through Murong Yu's eyes. He seemed to remember that he killed a Murong Ji. He seemed to be Murong Hao's younger brother. Yes, Murong An didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Interesting. Murong Yu looked at the door. His deep eyes seemed to penetrate the layers of obstacles and see everything inside. Scram! Murong Yu snorted coldly. Then he walked towards Murong's house. After such a scene happened, Murong's servants naturally didn't dare to stop Murong Yu's footsteps. Nonsense. The servant's foot was directly cut off by Murong Yu. When Murong An saw this person, he was paralyzed on the ground in horror. Even a fool knew that this person couldn't be provoked. Like 5 years ago, Murong's house didn't change much. According to his memory, Murong Yu slowly walked towards the center of the house. Along the way, whenever they met Murong's servants, these people looked frightened and avoided them. Even some of them who weren't just Murong Yu were pulled away. Although 5 years had passed, Murong Yu's appearance didn't change much. It was normal to be recognized by the former servants. Thinking of Murong Yu's ferocity, these people didn't dare to approach him at all. From the looks of it, Murong Hao's family had returned. And they had returned home in glory. The Murong family should be very happy about this. The grandeur of this event was almost comparable to the clan leader's birthday celebration. It was very lively. Murong's servants came and went in a hurry. It seemed that Murong's family had invited many families to celebrate together. After all, Murong Hao's family consisted of 3 cultivators. Usually, even if a family had 1 cultivator, these families would wantonly publicize it. What's more, the 3 of them came back at the same time. And one of them was an elder of Tianyin sect, one of the top 10 sections. Once this news spread out in the Great Xia dynasty, even in other empires, no family would dare to underestimate Murong's family. Even the Great Xia dynasty didn't dare to do anything to Murong's family. At this time, people were coming and going in the hall. Murong's family, various big families in East City, and even the royal family had all come. These families, the royal family, and even the emperor of the Great Xia dynasty had to be respectful in front of cultivators. Because the superior status and aristocratic status they were proud of were nothing in front of cultivators. Once they curried favor with these cultivators, they would gain a lot of benefits. If they weren't careful, they could also cultivate. In the future, they could fly in the sky and burrow into the ground. It wouldn't be a problem for them to live forever. Therefore, at this time, in the hall, countless people surrounded Murong Dan and Murong Hao, saying disgusting compliments and shamelessly currying favor with the father and son. As for Wei Shuiyan, she was a cultivator at the tribulation passing stage and an elder of Tianyin sect. She was already giving face to Murong's family by appearing here. How could Murong's family allow others to harass her? Moreover, Wei Shuiyan was sitting there, vaguely emitting a superior aura. How could these people of the secular world dare to approach her? It wasn't that they didn't dare, but that they couldn't get close at all. On the other side, Murong Hao's face was cold as he casually socialized. His father, Murong Dan, was very happy at this time. This guy was a typical villain intoxicated by success. Or it could be said that he was a nouveau riche. Looking at his beaming face, one could tell how happy he was. After Murong Yu arrived, this was what he saw. The hall was very big, accommodating hundreds of people. It was noisy and lively. No one noticed Murong Yu's arrival. As for Murong Yu, he simply sat down at a table in the corner, picked up a glass of wine, and started drinking. This wine tastes good. It seems that this is the first time I'm qualified to come here. Murong Yu drank a mouthful of wine and showed an inexplicable smile on his face. Before this, he didn't even have the qualifications to come close to this hall. And for a banquet like this, he could only serve tea and water. How could he have the qualifications to eat and drink here? But now it seemed that Murong Yu just came uninvited. Our Yin clan also has a few good-for-nothings who joined a cultivation sect. Unfortunately, they couldn't enter the top 10 sections. Brother Dan, you guys are good. A person from the Yin clan talked to Murong Yu. Murong Dan laughed. Of course, our qualifications are good. Only like this can we enter the top 10 sections. But your qualifications should also be good. But compared to the top 10 sects, it's a lot worse. Isn't it because of your woman that you have the qualifications to enter the top 10 sects? Otherwise, with just you? Hearing Murong Dan's words, the surrounding people were very unhappy in their hearts. But each and every one of them was an old fox. Each and every one of them smiled and flattered Murong Dan. Brother Dan, your position in the sect shouldn't be low. Our clan also has a few little guys with good qualifications who also want to cultivate. You see, a person from the Su clan looked at Murong Dan. His meaning was very obvious. Murong Dan was startled. A strange look appeared in his eyes. He was now only an outer disciple of the Tianyin sect. Not long ago, he broke through to the foundation establishment stage. His position in the Tianyin sect was nothing. If it wasn't for Wei Shuiyan, he would have been kicked out long ago. Of course, in front of everyone, he had already bragged as if he had become the chief disciple of the Tianyin sect. These disciples still have to look at the elders. Although my position in the sect is good, I still don't have the qualifications to accept a disciple. When he said accepting a disciple, he didn't mean accepting his own disciple, but becoming a disciple of the Tianyin sect. These people only wanted to use Murong Dan to bring their clansmen into the Tianyin sect. With your qualifications, if it wasn't for your woman, I'm afraid you would have been kicked out of the Tianyin sect long ago. And your position is very high. How can you be so thick-skinned to say such words? At this moment, a voice that didn't fit in with the lively atmosphere in the hall came from the crowd. Although the voice wasn't loud, it was clearly transmitted to everyone's ears. Whoosh! In an instant, the originally bustling main hall suddenly fell silent. In the silent hall, everyone could even hear the sound of their heartbeats. Who is it? After a moment, Murong Dan was the first to react. He roared and looked in the direction of the voice. The person who spoke was naturally Murong Yu. He hadn't been here for long, but he was already disgusted by Murong Dan. Finally, he couldn't help but sneer. Relying on his woman, this sentence was Murong Dan's reverse scale. As soon as Murong Yu said that, Murong Dan was already furious. With a roar, he had already pushed through the crowd and rushed towards Murong Yu with a murderous aura. He wanted to see which bastard it was. Murong Yu was naturally fearless. He slowly stood up and looked at Murong Dan, who was full of murderous aura, with a smile on his face. The moment he saw Murong Yu, Murong Dan was first stunned. Then his face was filled with horror. It's you, Murong Yu. In fact, there was even fear in his eyes. Chapter 186. Murong Yu left a deep impression on Murong Dan. His youngest son was slapped to death by this person. Once upon a time, he wanted to kill this person with his own hands. Especially after he entered the Tianyin sect, this desire was especially strong. It was just that he had never met Murong before. Later on, Murong shocked the cultivation world again and again. He did one shocking thing after another. In the beginning, Murong Dan was very disdainful. So what if Murong shocked the cultivation world? He was still a person who was not strong. However, Murong kept getting stronger and stronger and had far surpassed him. At this time, he was terrified. Although he still wanted to kill Murong for revenge, news about Murong kept coming and he became more and more frightened. At this time, he suddenly saw Murong here. When he thought of Murong's notorious appearance, Murong Dan couldn't help but be inexplicably horrified. Long time no see. Murong's face revealed a warm smile and slowly walked towards Murong Dan. Murong Dan looked at Murong with a face of fear. He saw that when Murong took a step forward, he took a step back. Plop! Murong Dan, who retreated in horror, tripped on a chair. Then a dignified cultivator in the foundation establishment stage fell to the ground with his face stretched out. Swish! Everyone's eyes followed the huge muffled sound. When they saw Murong Dan's appearance, they couldn't help but be puzzled. Some people even showed a disdainful smile on their faces. This is the cultivation master? He was so scared by a person that he almost peed his pants. Many people showed a look of disdain in their eyes. Trash! Trash! Almost at the same time, two similar voices sounded. However, the difference was that one voice was full of disdain and contempt, while the other voice was full of anger and disappointment. It was clear that the ones who had spoken were Murong and Wei Shuiyan. Murong was very disdainful and contemptuous, but as Murong Dan's wife, Wei Shuiyan felt very embarrassed and very angry. Why did I marry such a good-for-nothing? This thought flashed through Wei Shuiyan's mind more than once. If it wasn't for the sake of Murong Hao, she would have already cast aside the Murong Dan. After all, with her status and strength, it was extremely embarrassing for her to be matched with such a man. Although she resented Murong's loss of face, Wei Shuiyan still had to stand up for him. With a flash, she appeared between Murong and Murong Dan. "You're Murong?" Wei Shuiyan looked at Murong with a gloomy face, her eyes revealing traces of fierce killing intent. "You should be the elder of the Tianyin sect, Wei Shuiyan, right? His wife? What should I call you? Auntie?" Murong still looked at Wei Shuiyan fearlessly and said with a smile. She was just a crossing calamity stage cultivator. It wasn't like Murong hadn't seen Murong before. He even personally killed a crossing calamity stage cultivator a few days ago. He had even seen half immortals and first step immortals. Why would he be afraid of a woman who was only at the crossing calamity stage? A cold light flashed in Wei Shuiyan's eyes. An invisible pressure rushed out and swept towards Murong. It was very terrifying. Murong Ji was her son. She naturally wouldn't be indifferent to the enemy who killed her son. Her desire to kill Murong was even fiercer than that of Murong Dan. Rumble, a terrifying aura swept out like a tide. Although she controlled it very well and only targeted Murong, the invisible pressure still pushed the surrounding people away. Everyone's faces were filled with fear as they looked at Murong and Jian Wushuang. Murong had an indifferent look. When he was at the revolving reflection stage, he was already able to resist the aura of a half-immortal, let alone now that he was more than 100 times stronger than before. The current Murong wasn't even afraid of the pressure of the heavenly tribulation, let alone the aura of a crossing calamity stage cultivator. What? You still want to kill? Murong had a smile on his face. He didn't even have a trace of nervousness. Seeing this, Wei Shuiyan was shocked. She was a crossing calamity stage cultivator. Although Murong was notorious, he had always relied on various treasures and external forces. Regarding Murong's true strength, Wei Shuiyan was extremely disdainful. She had even thought more than once that once she saw Murong, she would personally kill him. She had this confidence. But she didn't expect that under the pressure of her aura, the other party would still have a calm appearance. You kill my son. You should pay with your life. Wei Shuyan's expression was cold. Although Murong Yu's strength was beyond her expectations, but it couldn't extinguish her desire to kill Murong Yu. You also want to kill me? Murong Yu's gaze passed through Wei Shuyan and looked at Murong Dan and Murong Hao behind her. At this time, Murong Dan's expression was embarrassed. He hated Murong Yu even more for making a fool of himself. His eyes showed incomparable resentment. As for Murong Hao, although his face was as calm as water, his eyes were filled with murderous intent. But this guy had already reached the revolving reflection stage. Sure enough, he was worthy of the name of a genius. Of course, whether this genius was fake or not was unknown. Even Murong Dan, this trash, could reach the foundation establishment stage. Wei Shuyan's contribution couldn't be ignored. At this time, the Murong clan's patriarch came in from outside, wanting to persuade Murong Yu and the others. Everyone is a family. Those things have already become history. Why don't you all sit down and be friendly? At this time, Murong Yang's heart was very helpless. Whether it was Murong Hao or Murong Yu, both sides were Murong clan's people. Both sides were cultivators. Logically speaking, with so many cultivators in the family, they should be even happier and support each other. But both sides were mortal enemies. And he had just left for a while, and this place had become like this. Really, enemies meet on a narrow path. Either they wouldn't come, or they would come back together. When they collided, it was inevitable that a violent collision would occur. This was not what he wanted to see, so he wanted to use his status as the clan's patriarch to mediate. Patriarch, he killed my son. We're enemies, not family. Today, no matter what, he must die. Wei Shuyan didn't care whether he was the clan's patriarch or not, and immediately said coldly. With her status, she naturally disdained this secular world's clan's patriarch. Even if it was some sect in the cultivation world, so what? Her status as an elder of the Tianyin sect was much higher than theirs. Hearing this, the smile on Murong Yang's face immediately froze. But after all, he was an old fox. He turned his head to look at Murong Yu. I don't care. If they dare to make a move today, I'll just kill them all and let them reunite on the surface. Murong Yu shrugged and said indifferently. Although they were a family in name, Murong's family was so big that whether or not they were related by blood was still a problem. In any case, they weren't his blood relatives. Even if he killed them, it didn't matter. Murong Yang's heart was gloomy. Although these were juniors, they were all cultivators. As the clan's patriarch, he was useless in front of them. Murong Yang's mouth moved. When he wanted to say something, he was interrupted by Wei Shuyan. Don't say any more. Murong Yu must die today. Murong Yang immediately swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. He couldn't afford to offend this woman. If he made her unhappy, as long as she gave the order, Murong's family would definitely be finished. Think carefully. Anyone who wants to make a move on me will all die. Murong Yu said indifferently. Wei Shuyan just snorted coldly, and her figure disappeared in a flash. She didn't dare to make a move here. Once she made a move, the whole Murong's family and the whole in East City would be affected. At that time, even if she was an elder of the Tianyin sect, she couldn't save her life. Aren't you very powerful? Leave in East City if you have the guts. Before leaving, Murong Dan used a provocative method. Then he and Murong Hao stepped on their flying swords and left the Murong's family one after the other. Murong Yu snorted disdainfully. The reason why he returned to the Murong's family this time was because of their relationship. He didn't believe that their family was simply going home to visit their relatives. It should be known that Wei Shuyan was an elder of the Tianyin sect. Tianzhu Mountain. Several streamers flashed across the void in the distance, and then stopped in the sky above Tianzhu Mountain. It was Murong Yu and the other three. Are you going to attack me together or one by one? You'd better attack me together. I don't have time to play with you. Murong Yu was suspended in the void, which made Wei Shuyan frown slightly. No matter how she looked at it, Murong Yu was only at the spirit tranquil stage. He hadn't even reached the out-of-body stage. How could he fly by himself? He was famous in the cultivation world. Sure enough, he had some strength. Murong Dan and Murong Hao were murderous and wanted to kill Murong Yu. However, they knew their own strength and didn't say anything. Wei Shuiyin took a step forward and looked coldly at Murong Yu. Wait! Before Wei Shuiyin was about to attack, Murong Yu suddenly stopped her. Scared? Hurry up and kneel down and beg for mercy. Maybe we'll give you a quick death. Murong Dan grinned maliciously and looked at Murong Yu with resentment. Idiot! Murong Yu looked disdainfully at Murong Dan. You're not just going home this time, right? You're here because of the Heavenly Spirit sect? Murong Yu already knew about the relationship between the Heavenly Spirit sect and the Tianyin sect from the disciples of the Heavenly Spirit sect. A cold light flashed in Wei Shuiyin's eyes, and she looked coldly at Murong Yu. I just want to ask you, does the Tianyin sect know about the Heavenly Spirit sect's actions? Murong Yu said in a gloomy voice. It would be fine if the Tianyin sect didn't know. However, if they knew about the Heavenly Spirit sect's actions and didn't stop them. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.